welcome to the school committee meeting on this Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order and note that this is a virtual meeting that is being broadcast live on WCAT's Facebook page. I would like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is the reading of our mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the public comment. We switched it up a little bit this time. I asked if anyone from the public would like to participate, for them to email either myself or Superintendent Lyons 2 hours before the meeting began. We have received 10 emails at this time, and I would like to start off in the order in which I did receive those emails. But before we begin, I would like to just make sure that I reiterate that, you know, I want to remind people that we have a 3-minute time limit. And it looks like we've got a lot of emails to get through. So with that, I have on my list William Thompson. So William, if you are joining us tonight, if you could possibly provide us with your name and address.
Hello, I'm Will Thompson, and just moved to 65 Prospect.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. And so I'm a current resident of Wakefield. I grew up here and I attended Wakefield schools from kindergarten to 8th grade. I say this not because it puts me in any special position of authority to speak, but to show that my criticisms of the Warrior mascot come from a place of a sincere attachment to the town and its history. Many who wish to keep the logo invoke Leonard Baird's memory and his role in supporting the Warrior teams. Its defenders argue that the logo must be preserved out of respect for tradition. However, the role of any particular individual in its origin and in its history over the years are irrelevant to the specific and narrow decision that will later be before the school committee, which is to determine the suitability of the continued use of an image of an American Indian head as the school's mascot logo. Even when we do take account of that history, the fact is this logo has changed on numerous occasions. Many even admit that the current logo borders on being a blatantly offensive caricature. Instead, they suggest returning to the prior logo. But this would be another active decision taken in the present to reinscribe the problematic and controversial use of a Native American image as the officially sanctioned logo. Moreover, in the past days, we have even learned from the Wakefield Historical Society that the longtime image itself was not drawn by either Leonard Baird nor General John Galvin. That image was a stock printer's image used by many other towns at the time. So the logo supporters are not defending a specific logo at all. In fact, they're essentially declaring is the entitlement to use Native American images as logos if they want to. Even more disturbing than the logo itself is the behavior that it appears to encourage, including the tomahawk chop chants at football games and other expressions that clearly run counter to any intention to respectfully pay tribute to American Indian history. The logo also raises concerns for the future reputations and careers of Wakefield graduates. In an era of increased sensitivity to the mascot issue nationally, it is unfair to put all students in a position of potentially having to explain and defend images of themselves involved with Native mascots in the future in order to accommodate those who believe that this logo represents their past. I acknowledge that retiring this logo forces us to face some hard questions about how we contend with that past. If we replace the current logo because we now believe that it is inappropriate to use Native American mascots to represent almost entirely non-Native populations in sports teams, what does it say about our past use of these images? To the logo's defenders, stories about Mr. Baird appear to offer a way to avoid facing those difficult questions. In essence, they point to Baird and they say, how could it be racist if our most prominent Native townsperson was actively involved? However, the Youth Council is not proposing a referendum to judge the town's past. Likewise, it is beyond the scope of the school committee's eventual vote, which will be to set a course for the future. The logo's retirement is a necessary but partial step that needs to be taken in Wakefield. The very tone of this dispute in our town about the logo is, I believe, a symptom of our larger ignorance of that history. Rather than seriously discussing Native issues, the conversation has remained squarely focused on ourselves, our personal memories, our high school achievements, and our sports teams. I'm not calling to cancel the mascot and logo as racist or race history. We deserve a discussion that is far more nuanced. The story of the Bairds in Wakefield deserves to be remembered and celebrated. However, a divisive and contentious American Indian logo is not the appropriate vehicle for memorializing that past. The school committee should support student research and fund a curriculum that looks at the pre-colonization period of this very place, as well as the local history of land taking and settlement. I believe that there are fascinating stories to learn about this place that we are in, from William Cowdery's Tavern on what is now the town common, to the very troubling history of James Quinophet, for whom Lake Quannapowitt is named. Finally, I would like to address the recent actions of the chair of this committee. In a February 2nd item letter, Ms. Purcell declared her support for the Indian mascot logo. In that letter, she also insinuated that the Youth Council's October presentation to the school committee had not been of their own volition, but that they were, quote, encouraged to present. She wrote that she was troubled that, in, quote, recent days, the school department had begun using a new Wakefield Warrior logo without her board's permission. And she declared her intention to, quote, work closely with the school department to determine who is responsible for that decision. I do not object to an elected official expressing private feelings on an issue of public concern. However, by stating that opinion and in the same breath calling for an investigation into the actions of the school department, Purcell has violated the necessary separation between her personal beliefs and the exercise of official oversight authority. This lapse in judgment calls into question her professionalism, as well as her ability to be impartial in her relations with the school department on this issue. Equally inappropriate, the vague accusations that students on the youth council were coached or had been agents of someone else's agenda robs them of their own agency. Such insinuations are particularly patronizing in light of the unwavering professionalism and tact that the youth council has shown in the face of intense scrutiny and criticism. To close, I urge the school committee to distinguish between the difficult conversations we are now seeing of the town grappling with its past, and to focus on making a forward-looking decision in the best interest of current and future students. They are the main stakeholders, and they should not be bound to a future that is defined by others' attachments to their past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next on my list is Amy Wall. Are you joining us tonight, Amy?
I am. Thank you, Amy.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I continue to have great concerns regarding the process to remove the high school's logo. As you know, generations of individuals have walked our school halls with great pride. This pride goes beyond students and is shared by families, business owners, and others. We know that there are passionate people on both sides of this issue. However, the only proper way to move forward is to ensure there is a public and transparent process, which to date has been absent. Because of this absence, confusion and frustration has spread throughout the community. To remedy this self-inflicted problem, I ask that you table this discussion and move to prioritize a public hearing and outreach efforts to ensure all of those that want to participate are enabled to do so. Only through an active, robust public process can this issue be properly settled. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Do we have Navia Waterman joining us tonight?
Hi, it's Nivea, but so
Oh, sorry, thank you.
it's okay. So hi, my name is Nivea Waterman and I'm an 8th grader at the Galvin Middle School. But most importantly, I'm a Wakefield Warrior born and raised. Recently, I found out about like the discussion of the logo change and for the Wakefield Warriors, and I'm beyond disappointed. The warrior symbol is something that embodies who I am as an athlete. There's also a much deeper meaning to why our town has the logo and the name Warriors. Thanks to the Bard family who named us and created the original logo, they also brought Native American culture to this town to shed light on their customs and culture. It's sad that our town would even consider taking away a logo that has so much history. I feel it's disrespectful not only to the Bard family, but to our town's heritage. That, may I add, has been removed from being taught in schools. Many people who want to take away the logo say that our logo is a symbol of racism, but as a person of color, I highly disagree. To me, what is racist is the kids who call me the N-word in the hallways and attempt to pressure me into saying racial slurs, not a logo that all started from a Native American. People don't want to talk about the things that happened to me as a person of color in Wakefield, but are quick to remove a logo with so much meaning. The whole removing the logo is to make the people requesting it feel better about themselves and has nothing to do with the logo being racist. If the people of this community really cared, they'd be fighting for us to learn about the settlement of Native Americans that lived here and the Bard family. If they cared, they'd be teaching their children not to be racist. I may not be able to speak for every person of color, but I can speak for myself and many others. We want you to stop pitying us and treating us like we're some pet that you need to take care of. It's disgusting and so disrespectful. We don't want pity, we want respect and to be treated like everybody else. Taking away the Warrior logo is so disrespectful to the Bard family, Wakefield residents, and many people of color. Our town preaches that it's inclusive, but day by day, our culture is removed. Every year, Wakefield is becoming harder to live in because of the lack of cultural awareness and respect. There's so much fake wokeness in this town, I'm disgusted. Please consider what you're doing by removing the logo because it'd be a horrible thing to do. If anything, go back to the original logo that Mr. Bard created. Thank you, Nivea Waterman. But I'd also like to add that they said that they talked to students about this logo change, but every single student that I've talked to says that they think that it's a ridiculous decision, and most of us weren't talked to. At most, probably 10 or 15 kids out of a school with over 1,000. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next on my list, I have Marie Mcnall.
Go ahead. Good, right? Yeah.
Yep. One second. Yeah, Marie Mcnall. I have been a resident of Wakefield for 62 years. I'm a true Wakefieldian. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm a true warrior. I am writing this letter to express my disgust and complete disagreement with removing the Warrior logo. The Warrior has been a town staple for over 30 years. As a lifelong resident of Wakefield, this is more than just a logo for me, and the same goes for many others in this town. Wakefield High School was honored and privileged to accept this logo as a gift from the Beard family, dating back many years ago. The Beard family was proud to have the Warrior head represent our school and what it stands for. Warrior meaning strong, and that was what our school was and still is to this day. A certain small group is trying to erase what our past and present students hold dear to their hearts, the Warrior legacy. I'm a graduate of the class of 1976 and proud to be a Wakefield Warrior. I fondly remember that we had majorettes with beautiful headdresses and dresses that twirled at football games and proudly marched every year in the 4th of July parades. This was a highlight and expression of praise and gratitude to the Native American culture that inspired us. But oh, this small group calls the Warrior head and all who support it racist. Far from it. My two daughters both attended Wakefield school system and are products of Wakefield High. One daughter was a cheerleader for the football and hockey teams, and my other daughter played varsity basketball and varsity soccer. She played both teams for 4 years and was named captain of both teams her senior year. She also won the P. de Ganella Award. This was an honor for sure, and she to this day will tell anyone and everyone how proud she is to be a Wakefield Warrior. Once a warrior, always a warrior. This is something I will be proud of too until the day I die. Many of the people trying to affect this change of removing the Warrior logo are people who are not born and bred in Wakefield and therefore lack hometown pride and spirit. These people do not understand the true meaning of the Warrior logo and what this really represents for this incredible town and the people in it. In closing, we cannot allow history to be destroyed by people who have no idea of passion, strength, and unforgettable memories. They need to be stopped. We need to show the strength of our namesake and continue this beautiful journey of being a Wakefield Warrior, strong and proud community. And I also would like to just mention that I am not very happy about the comments made to Amy Purcell by that Will Thompson. Amy, you've done a wonderful job and you have every right to do what you had to do. My name is Marie DeSanto Mcnall, class of 1976, proud to be a Wakefield resident and a warrior.
Thank you very much, Marie. Next on the list is Christy Mcnell.
Hello. Well, I guess you're getting the whole family here. So hello, everyone. I want to first begin by thanking the school committee for allowing our voices to be heard with this meeting. I want to introduce myself, which my mom did previously just help in doing, but I'm Christy Mcnell. I have lived in Wakefield for 25 years and went through the Wakefield public school systems. I have represented this town through athletics and academics in various ways, just described in my letter that I submitted, but I do want to get straight to the point. The term warrior is defined in many different ways, but most often the following are associated: brave, fighter, courageous. The Native American image represents just that. I wore that logo on my gear and entered each obligation as a warrior and felt pride, courage, and distinct gratitude. Gratitude for the Native American culture that represents what it means to be truly strong when facing adversity and has inspired me every step of the way. The Native American head is a representation of the intangible. It is bigger than all of us. Truly, it is a feeling that is deep within. It is a passion that is electrifying and a love that is fiercely determined and unconditional. Only until you have had the honor to participate in something or feel overwhelmingly prideful that is bigger than your own existence will you then understand. It is much like faith. For example, as a Christian, we praise the Lord. He is bigger than us. You cannot see him, you cannot touch him, but you can feel him. It may seem crazy, but this is a similar effect the warrior head has had for myself and a majority of the Wakefield people. We cannot touch the warrior head, but we can feel the warrior strength and presence within us each and every single day. Native Americans were stripped from their land, their belongings, and their dignity. Whether your ancestors were part of the process or not, there is no turning back to repair the past. However, we can heal the future by remembering, honoring, respecting, and educating to propel us forward as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want it to be clear that the problems lie not within the Native American imagery of the warrior head. The problem lies within the ignorance of some who propose that erasing the Native American imagery from our logo in our schools will fix the very real issue of racial injustice. Perhaps the Native American imagery should inspire us to shift our perspective and educate, not eradicate. Those of us who wish to preserve our warrior are passionate about doing so because it is more than just a logo to us. It is who we are and is very much a part of our history. Instead of erasing the warrior, let us increase community awareness and honor these tribes more now than ever before. The Native American people deserve this. Let's pay homage to the Native Americans by establishing historical landmarks, statues, memorials, and flags throughout the town. Let's involve Native Americans in the discussion and have them educate us on what we can do to increase awareness to their tribes and support them and their culture. Let us teach our students of the tribes that lived on our soil and the battles that they faced. Let us learn that we cannot take our history in vain because of the guilt that overcomes us based on the improper actions of our ancestors. Let us be clear that we did not create this problem. Our ancestors did, but we can most definitely change the narrative. I do also want to make the statement that, I can understand both perspectives in the sense that there is a racial injustice and I feel for them. But our warrior head is something that this town has forever respected. And I have, in my years of being here, in 25, I have never seen anyone use the mascot in vain, even from opposing sides. It was like the mascot was always an untouchable object that no one ever messed with. Removing that is removing history. It's removing a part of what this town was about. And especially where a Native American was someone who advocated for it, I feel like that's even more so that we're removing a part of the Native American history. And I think that if the real problem is that they're not being noticed, the Native Americans their history is there somewhere, but we're not expressing it. So I feel like in order to really truly represent them and respect them and honor them, is to bring awareness to that, and let's educate our students and let's raise our children to respect who the mascot is. And if the tomahawk chop is that offensive, then maybe the school system can tell the kids that they can't do that. I remember when we were in the Super 8, we had the Red Sea, and there were some kids that did some offensive things, not in terms of the Native American, but to the other team. And we were pulled aside as a school saying that we were not allowed to do so. And if we were, we would be removed from the game. So there's different things within the school system and the community that can be done to stop anything that can be directly racial and harmful to the Native Americans. But the logo itself does not seem to be that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Christy. Next is Myra Sessions. Are you with us this evening?
I am. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to start, I think, by echoing what a lot of others have said, which is a really sincere thank you and sense of gratitude to the school committee. We know that this year has been impossible for you all. You're facing really challenging decisions and really providing a lot of leadership through a really challenging time. And so we want to thank you for that. And for that, I include all the decisions around COVID, all the decisions around the budget that are coming, and also sort of the mascot decision, which we know is sort of a really important decision for our community. My husband, first of all, I live at 40 Richardson Street. My husband and I moved to Wakefield about 15 years ago. We buy a house, we're taxpayers. We spend a lot of time, we volunteer on committees. We really try to make a mark because this is our home. Wakefield is our home. We are proud parents. We have 2 kids in the Woodville School. We have been nothing but overwhelmingly impressed by the school system and all that they've done to foster this environment of tolerance, of kindness, of awareness of differences. I feel like the school goes out above and beyond to really nurture those values in our kids. And that stands, in my mind, in stark contrast to the high school mascot. We all know there's a lot of evidence that this stereotype, which is manifested in the Native American logos that are in high schools, show but one side of a culture. They show really just a stereotype of an entire people that doesn't really represent them. And it also doesn't sort of reinforce the ideas that our school system is trying to invest in our kids, which is sort of an openness and a tolerance and a kindness and a sort of a real openness to learning about individuals and their cultures. And so we find it hard to reconcile what we see as really a true, honest openness and a culture of tolerance and kindness that our schools are teaching our younger, at least our elementary schools. We don't yet have experience with the older grades. But that our elementary schools are investing in our kids and look forward to. We really feel like there's an opportunity here to have our entire school system represent those values. And so I mirror the concepts that some of the other speakers have talked to about how can we bring in more education and more engagement on Native cultures back into our education. I mean, I think some of the kindergartners, teachers, I think have done a really exceptional job at the Woodville School. I think there's clearly an opportunity to expand that education around multicultural values, but then we need to back it up with a representation of our high school that is respectful as well. And frankly, the current mascot shows to me nothing but a sort of disrespectful stereotype of a really rich culture. And I really hope that we can have the strength to make some what are really challenging decisions. I don't underestimate the difficulty of making these decisions, but it's really important for representing who we want to be who we are in our community, frankly, we are a diverse community. We are an increasingly diverse community, and that our symbols to the outside world should also reflect those values. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next on my list is Michelle Mcnall, and if you could also state your address as well. Are you with us tonight, Michelle?
It looks like your voice doesn't work.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I couldn't see you.
Michelle, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're still muted.
It doesn't look like she's muted. It looks like she doesn't have her speaker on.
It could be a microphone issue. Might not be connected to the right microphone through the application.
Okay.
Oh,
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Okay, yes.
Awesome. Okay, there we go. So I'm just using my mother's sound here. But yeah, so another Mcnall here on the call. And I'm from obviously Wakefield. I live 25 Park Street. And I too am trying to, figure out, where to really stand on both sides. And I am completely respectful of everyone's opinion. But as of late, I've been monitoring the Wakefield community page in exactly an attempt to try to understand where the other side is coming from. And I've narrowed it down to 3 main themes and arguments: that the warrior mascot supports racial injustice, inciting violence and discrimination against Native American people; that removing the warrior logo only concerns students in the high school, not the entire town; and the Baird family, who gifted the town with the warrior logo, is only one family and cannot represent the Native American people as a whole. By way of background, my name, obviously, like I said, is Michelle. I've attended these schools. I'm a lifelong Wakefield resident and a lifelong warrior. I have roots in this town dating back to 1900s, and I could not be happier to call this home. Without Wakefield and the people within it, I wouldn't be who I am today. And a lot of what comes from being in Wakefield is that warrior pride, and it's very much a part of our DNA. And honestly, I just needed to, come on this platform here and be able to state my case, which, if we're addressing those 3 arguments, the depiction of the warrior in our logo alone does not promote, nor does it in any way support racial injustice. Just because our logo is comprised of Native American imagery does not mean that we as a society are racist or that we are condoning racism of any sort. So therefore, my questions to the other side and the school committee are the following. Has there ever been an instance in our town's history where a Wakefield student or resident was convicted of a crime against someone belonging to a Native American tribe or someone with a Native American background? Has anyone from Wakefield incited violence on a Native American tribe or individual with a Native American background for which they were found guilty as charged, with the warrior logo being the inspiration for such an attack? Has any Wakefield resident or student of Native American descent felt threatened attending school, town functions, town meetings, sporting events, etc., because of their heritage? If the answer to all of the above questions is no, then we do not have sufficient enough cause to prove that the Native American imagery comprised within the warrior logo incites violence against Native Americans or supports racial injustice, for that matter. Therefore, without the probable cause to do so, it is wrong to move forward in an action to remove the warrior logo simply because some people think it's time for a change. Stripping the town of the warrior logo in our history is all part of a political, socially progressive movement, which I assure you will not end with just this. I also will get back to that point, but I wanted to make reference to the word mascot. We do not have a mascot. We have a logo of a Native American. And that logo is held with such high regard. And I have been through the school system. Like I said, born and raised here. Never once have I ever heard anyone refer to that logo other than something of utmost respect. And they're proud. Everyone's proud of where we come from. We're proud to wear that logo because that image, it's not to represent an entire Native American culture. It's about representing the pride and the strength and the tenacity and the bravery that we are all so attached to. So, if an image is such a problem, my questions to the other side in the school committee are the following. Should publishers of history books be banned from including photos of Native American people because a depiction of a Native American is considered racist? Does looking at a simple illustration of a Native American spark such an inferno of hatred within that is so strong that you truly believe the only way to extinguish this is to erase the image altogether, that right there is racist. The other side is implying that what happens with each site is that people automatically think negatively about the Native Americans, and this is just not true. Like I said, I've gone through the system. I know what that warrior logo means, and it does not mean anything violent. It does not mean anything negative or derogatory. So, you know, going back to the point that I made about, you know, about the Native Americans and, you know, anyone feeling threatened, I don't know any instance of that. I really don't. So, you know, the other side is quite adamant that such a decision to strip the town of our logo should not concern the whole town, which is extremely interesting to me. Because if not the entire town, then who should this matter concern? Is there a list of potential issues and topics of discussion and an accompanying list of who can and can't have the right to voice their opinion? We all live in Wakefield, and that's everyone. So whether you're for the logo being erased or you're not, everyone should be able to have that opportunity to be able to state their case. And that's why I'm so thankful to you, the school committee, for doing this and giving us the platform to do just that. And funny enough, I actually got one member from the other side saying, so if we rename the library, would we have to involve the town on that too? Yeah, you would. You would need to involve the entire town because as tax people, we're paying for that taxpayer funded institution. And it's everyone should be able to have a right to that. Even dating back into 1868, if you go through the history archives of the Wakefield BB Library, they had a town meeting to make such a decision to name the library. So having a democratic and due process for affecting such changes within the town is a part of Wakefield. So that's why I truly believe that this matter is not going to be solved today in a Zoom call. It needs to be done through a voting process that school-aged children and adults alike are able to go ahead and voice their opinions. We heard from a student earlier. So not all children and students agree with the change, just like all adults and alumni don't agree with the change. So I think that everybody needs and deserves the right to be heard. And
Thank you.
Baird family, they are legends. And honestly, it was Leonard Baird that gave the name Warrior, which was to symbolize the strength in battle to win games.
Yep.
And honestly, he even said himself that attempting to remove the name and logo of the American Indian serves one purpose: to erase the guilt of some who would like to erase an ugly part of American history. I agree with so many people who have spoken before me who say that, you know, the answer here is not to erase the Warrior logo. The answer here is to incorporate Native American culture into our school system. It's to teach, it's to educate, it's to, you know, let's have memorials in town. Let's do the things that we can do to support the Native American culture. Let's fundraise and donate to a Native American cause that can help tribes. Like there's other ways that we can do this.
Michelle, I don't mean to, can you hear me?
And I think I speak for many people that didn't get a chance for their voice to be heard when I say that the Warrior logo and the Warrior mantra is very much a part of who I am in this town are. It's a part of our DNA. And ripping is like ripping part of our history.
She must not be able to hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you hear me, Michelle?
School committee again, letting us be able to voice our.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Next on my list, thank you very much, Michelle, if you can hear me. Next on my list is Sheila Erickson. Are you joining us this evening? If you could just state your name and address.
I am, thank you.
Thank you.
Having attended Wakefield Public Schools and as a current Wakefield resident with children entering the Wakefield Public School system, I wanted to state my full support of the retirement of the Warrior mascot. The use of similar images has been proven as harmful to Native Americans. A mascot should not be divisive, and it certainly should not cause people anguish or aid in their subjugation. Please consider the well-being of all over the sentimentality of some. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is Nicole Calabrese. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, great. My name is Nicole Calabrese. My address is 40 Friend Street, and I am a lifelong Wakefield resident. I graduated Wakefield High School in 2000. I was on the dance team all 4 of those years, captain of the dance team, and as such, I attended every single Wakefield High School football game, including when we won the Super Bowl in 1999. My husband is also a lifelong Wakefield resident, and he was on the 1997 varsity basketball team that won the state championship. So our family has a lot of Wakefield pride. Our son has just entered the Wakefield public school system. Our parents, both sets of our parents live in Wakefield, as do our siblings, our nieces and nephews, and they've all passed through or are passing through the Wakefield school system and their sports programs. I'm here tonight to urge the school committee to take immediate action regarding the Native American logo used at the high school and in town. It is clear that many people falsely believe that because we have an Indigenous family in town, who, by the way, is not, they are divided on their opinions of the matter. I think I should make that clear given the comments so far tonight. But because this Indigenous family in town is involved in the creation, I think that there's a thought that we're an exception to the fact that these types of mascots are not okay. Studies show that using any stereotypical image increases prejudice towards Indigenous people, less directly towards other ethnicities, and also decreases the self-worth of Indigenous students, the youth. What does our warrior logo say when our athletes are competing against other towns who are highly likely to be unaware of the Baird family? What does our warrior logo say to newcomers to town? Perhaps we could have an even more diversified population if this small, yet highly symbolic step was taken. Our warrior logo may be considered by some an honorable nod to the Baird family, but we cannot ignore the rallying cry in Massachusetts and across the country to take action now on removing the logo. A half a dozen Massachusetts tribes are proposing legislation to ban all Native American mascots across the state. As their letter to our government states, civil rights issues should never be decided in the court of public opinion. This is a civil rights issue. It's a civil rights issue for the Indigenous families in our town, our state, and our country. And I believe that most Wakefieldians want our community to be seen as a leader in matters of diversity and inclusion and not a laggard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And last on my list is Jade Waterhouse. Have you joined us this evening, Jade?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. My name is Jade Waterhouse, and I'm an 8th grader at the Galvin Middle School. Today, the word warrior is frequently used to describe a person who is very strong and doesn't give up easily. Isn't that a person we should all try and be like? Our logo represents those who lived here long before us, Native Americans who are a crucial part in the history of Wakefield. They should not be forgotten. Our logo reminds us to always be brave when we are down and always push through and never give up. The warrior logo is a symbol of strength, honor, and respect. It shows who we are as a player on the field, the court, the track, or rink. We wear the symbol proudly. It shows our opponents that we are brave, we are strong, and that we are going to do our best until the game ends. By taking it away, it not only erases the history that was established long before we arrived, but it takes away the pride we carry once we put on that uniform. Once a warrior, always a warrior. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for participating. That is all the public comments that I have this evening. So I would like to just move forward with the agenda. And next is the Student Advisory Council. So I think we have, did I see Sophia?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Are you the only one joining us?
Sam is also here.
Okay, great.
Hi. So to start off tonight, we just wanted to let you know that grades were posted on iPass today, the second quarter report cards. And then moving on to visual arts, announcements, we are congratulating Ashlyn Casey, who plays the alto saxophone, Bianca Zaini, who is in the chorus, and Casey McGibbon, who is also in the chorus, because they were all selected for the 2021 Massachusetts All-State Music Ensemble. And a big congratulations to Ashling, who received the highest alto saxophone score in the state. And another big congratulations to Casey McGibbon, who was selected for the 2021 All Eastern Chorus, which is a group of students from 11 states, Maine to Maryland, and the District of Columbia. And for some other announcements, the Youth Council put out a survey this past week for students in all grades to get a better understanding of how we're feeling and the challenges that we're going through in order to figure out some ways to alleviate those challenges.
That's wonderful.
So I can take over from here. So also currently senior officers are working on a survey to capture, what they would like their senior celebrations and senior week to look like. Right now we're working with the senior night committee and administration to, make the, end of the year for seniors, as fun and as safe, as we can under the circumstances. In addition, the school, adjustment counselor, Ms. Burns, and school psychologist, Mr. Branco and Ms. Gordon, are running some social emotional health support groups for students. We have, healthy habits with Ms. Burns, stress management with Mr. Branco, and anxiety and coping skills with Ms. Gordon. They meet different times during the week. If students or parents have any questions about these groups, they can reach out directly to them. So hopefully this will help to, support, more students during this difficult and stressful time. And I think that's all the announcements we have today, unless there are any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for our student advisors? I just had one quick question with the grab and go lunches. Have you guys participated in that at all? And, have any of your friends done it? And if you have any reviews as to how that is going?
I'm not sure about Sophia. I personally haven't done it. I do know, a few who have, and, I think it's gone pretty well. I'm not sure if Sophia has anything else to share about more specific about that.
Personally, I haven't either, but I have heard from students and teachers that it's going pretty well, and a lot of students are enjoying the fact that they can have lunch right after school.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, well, thank you guys so much for joining our meeting tonight. And I hope you have a great week.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Susie, do we have a consent agenda?
We do. Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the December 8th, 2020 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the January 7th, 2021, January 21st, 2021, and January 28th, 2021 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meetings, and the minutes of the January 22nd, 2021 school committee policy and communication subcommittee meeting, and the minutes of the January 27th, 2021 school committee student services subcommittee meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, there is a roll call vote, and Judy is not with us this evening. So I will call it. Myself, yes. Ms. Bayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Dr. Burns?
Yes.
And Mr. Liakos?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. Next on the agenda are budget items with Christine.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight you have the financial report from July 1st, 2020 till January 31st, 2021. The first report is the local budget. It shows we've spent about 94% of our budget. We're currently looking over our encumbrances, making adjustments, and sort of making forecasts for what we need for the spring semester. We haven't frozen the accounts yet, but we're thinking of doing so, making sure that we're going to end the year with all the accounts in a good place. Moving forward to the grants are looking pretty good. They're on track for where they were last year at this time. We were notified that we were going to receive ESSER 2 money, which is exciting. We got the notification on Friday. It's going to be about $370,000. So we'll have to put our budget forward for that to the state. The revolving accounts, we got our second circuit breaker. So we got 2 of the 4 quarters. And then we're looking to just make sure Wakefield Academy is also doing well. We just have to make sure that all the transfers are being made to those accounts. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Susie.
Christine, if you could just clarify, since we've got a lot of people on this call and people listening in, when you say that we are 94% we've spent 94%, that includes encumbering, is the term you use, a number of those expenses. We still have 5 months left in the fiscal year. And so I wouldn't want anyone thinking that we've literally spent 94% of all of the dollars and still have 5 months to get through. You've in fact kind of accounted for, encumbering is accounting for a number of those expenses.
Right.
At this point, do we think 6% that's left is going to get us through the end of the year? Or do we think that we may come in over budget, under budget, or is right now it kind of looking like we're on track?
So 94% you're absolutely right, Susie. It's what we've spent and we've encumbered. So encumbrances are what we know that we're going to spend from now to the end of the year. It's all the staff, it's the salaries. So we know how many payrolls are left. So all of that is encumbered. So the 6% is what's unencumbered. We still have things coming. We still have facilities work to do. We still have some COVID related expenses. So yeah, we're forecasting that we're going to make some transfers because we're still getting COVID relief grants. So we have in our budget presentation for this year and next year, which we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks to you and the subcommittee and the full committee, we're going to go over all of that. We're forecasting that we might be over budget for 21 and how we're going to account for that. But yes, we're taking all of that into consideration. But yes, you're absolutely right. The 94% is spent and encumbered.
And then I just have a quick follow-up question. The grant that you referred to that we heard about for the 300,000, can you just, I know this, but could you share the limitations of kind of what that money can be used for? Just so that the people listening kind of understand what that $300,000 could be spent on?
Sure. So we've already received ESSER 1. So that was for COVID relief expenses to the district. We've already spent that. We've spent that on facilities work, technology, cleaning, etc. ESSER 2 is to sort of, and that was to open school. ESSER 2 is to help us finish this year and potentially help us open for next year. So that's going to help with learning loss for technology, continue PPE purchases, etc.
Perfect. Thanks, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Christine. Mike, did you have a question?
I think you kind of answered it, or it was answered, but because you talked about the forecast, but I was kind of curious if there were things that have already taken place that were unusual events that won't continue. But the fact that you said that the forecast has us going over budget pretty much answers that question. So thank you.
Yes. This whole year has been, we've had expenses that we didn't anticipate.
Yep, that's for sure. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Well,
so we have our payroll warrants.
Yes, the next thing is the payroll warrants for January.
And do we have a motion?
We do. Move that the school committee approve payroll warrants 28 and 30 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Dr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Liakos,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Thank you. I just have a quick question before I move on under chair comments. I do know that we have a diversity leaders presentation here with some of our students. I'm just wondering if the committee would mind if we bump them up. So, you know, if they need to get offline and do some homework or whatever, you know, they can do that. Does anybody have any issues in regards to that if we do that? Nope, okay. So Doug, do you want to introduce them or?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. So we have diversity leaders here with us, led by their their teachers, Jason Pavey and Margaret Messier. Jason is the Social Studies and History Curriculum Coordinator. Margaret is the English Curriculum Coordinator. They've been working very closely with this group this year, and they've done such an amazing job. And one of the things that I think is most promising is the best work is really yet to come. I think they're looking at kind of expanding diversity leaders as something that's open to all students and not just a few students moving forward. But we're super pleased to kind of turn it over to them and give them an opportunity to share a little bit of what they've been working on. Margaret?
I think I'm going to start.
All right, Jay.
And Ms. Messier can kind of come in after. So we just have a couple of slides to kind of show you guys and kind of update you really on two things. Kind of big picture is Margaret and I'm the 5 through 12 history curriculum coordinator and Margaret's the ELA coordinator. So we want to just take a couple minutes to just give you some updates on how we're trying to address diversity, equity, and inclusion through our humanities curriculum, and then really kind of turn it over to the seniors in our class to talk a little bit more specifically about what they're doing and plan to be doing in the diversity class that Margaret and I co-teach. So if we could just go to the next slide. So just real quickly, some of you probably know that the social studies frameworks were updated in 2018 and they were to be implemented last year in 2019. And obviously with the school closure, there was a little bit of a hiccup with that implementation. But you know, when we got to September 2020, I can safely say that every grade level has implemented these new frameworks. And you know, from the lens that we're talking about today, one of the key standards is to make sure that contributions of women and men of all ethnicities and backgrounds in the U.S. And connections to are connected in not just U.S. but world history and world culture. So just some of the things that we're doing in the history department is we're trying to incorporate more authors of color, more female authors. One example is our AP Human Geo class at the high school, which last year for years was only one section, is now up to 2 sections. We are currently reading excerpts of Warmth of Other Suns from Isabella Wilkerson. I'm sure many of you know, because you probably got an email from me saying that the civics project is up and running in grade 8, also in US2, our junior year. We also have some other electives that we put into effect this year at the high school, with genealogy, AP psychology, another section of AP Human Geo. But again, going back to the diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are still trying to get teachers, and we're working on it to get them to be comfortable teaching these uncomfortable topics. You know, I think one of the things that our class does that we're hoping to kind of get into other classes is that, you know, we can no longer open up a kind of a canned curriculum, give the right answers and move on. But part of that, our continuing efforts is to train and support teachers in the humanities classes to feel confident in having these conversations with their students, 5 through 12, obviously age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. I know the WEA has consistently been messaging out PD opportunities and workshops for our teachers to attend, and we're really happy about that. We've been able to get Dr. Fernandez from Boston University, who's the Dean of Equity, Inclusion, and to come talk to faculty as well as the kids in our class. So it's obviously an ongoing process, but we feel we've made a pretty good dent in this work, and we're really excited to continue with it. And I know, like I said, the seniors are going to kind of highlight the work that they're doing, but I think now I'm just going to hand it over to Ms. Messier to talk about ELA.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. So I'm Margaret Messier, and thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about some of the things going on in the English department. And I have to say, this is my first year in Wakefield, and people couldn't be more helpful or welcoming or wonderful to work with. I'm just really enjoying it. So also within the English curriculum, there's the goal to have students be able to critically view and constructively evaluate all different points of view. And in order to do that, they have to be exposed to diverse points of view. So I think we kind of began that work this summer with our summer text talks, which were optional for students and which were facilitated by Dr. Fernandez and Mr. Pavey and myself. And Dr. Fernandez kind of brought a unique perspective to them, but the goal was to have a text at each level, elementary, middle school, and high school, where students could kind of evaluate their own thoughts about issues with the comfort of having someone else's story be told and to be able to look at it through their own lens and have great discussions. So we're hoping that that's something that went well, but we could get more students involved in, and maybe, a tradition we could start over the summers of looking at those and talking about it. Another thing that's been a goal this year for the English department 5 through 12 is to integrate more diverse perspectives into the curriculum through text, and having those texts be able to promote discussions and be able to analyze different perspectives, think critically, write critically, read analytically. And I think that's been going really, really well, thanks in part to the professional development that Jason discussed with Dr. Fernandez, who came in and spoke with the teachers about how to facilitate conversations that might not always be comfortable or might not always be easy for everyone, but to make it so that it's through the lens of sharing your experience and listening to others' experience in a way that doesn't devalue anyone's experience. And the last thing I just wanted to point out, and I put some screenshots of all the texts, there's quite a few of them since we've added one in each year, 5 through 12. And I should say that that's something we're looking to continue to do each year so that we can grow wider breadth of material for students and reach all students. The teachers have been so dedicated this year in the midst of everything else going on to make all students feel represented and heard. And I think in the chaos of things, it's hard to be able to create safe spaces for students to have these discussions. And I think that's something that teachers should be really proud of, because they've been able to create those safe spaces. They've been able to facilitate these discussions. And I think that they are and will continue to make all students feel heard and represented. And with that being said, I want to turn it over to a group of students who are definitely a bright spot in every day that I get to see them. And that is the diversity leaders team.
Hello, everybody. I'm Zach. I'm obviously a diversity leader. As you all know, 2020, 2021 has been a year of evolution and change, and the diversity leaders class has also had to adapt and change, not just because of COVID, but for other reasons. And one of the biggest way that the class has evolved this year is that we are building our own curriculum. So in the past, we used to use a curriculum that was provided by the ADL, or the Anti-Defamation League. But this year we did away with that curriculum because we felt like we were put, for lack of a better term, into a box, and we weren't really allowed to express what the class wanted to the community. So this year we are building a curriculum that promotes discussions about a plethora of issues, some being identity, community, implicit bias, anti-racism, origin of hate, systematic discrimination, the list goes on and on. Another thing we do is we have a lot more responsibility and we take a much bigger leadership role. So what that means is that those topics I just talked about, we'll create workshops. So an example of this is we created a workshop centered around acceptance. And I believe it was a few weeks ago, we zoomed into a 5th grade classroom and we ran an entire workshop talking about how, and more importantly, why you should accept people with differences and how that will create a more tight-knit community. And we get to share and talk about our own personal experiences, and we get to learn and understand from each other. And one of the reasons why I wanted to take this class last year and this year is that it opens a new perspective into how you see the world. Whereas, so like for me, I live my life a certain way, and whereas other people in my class, their lives could be outside of school completely different. And I can't relate to those people and their thoughts and their ideas and where they're coming from on these hard issues that we talk about, whether it be racism, identity, community, whatever the topic is, until we sit down and actually have a conversation about it. And that's one of the beauties of this class.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rania, and I'm also a diversity leader. Another way that we have evolved is that we get to share and even talk about our personal experiences connecting, to the topics that we talk about in our class. And it's as means to learn from each other and even understand each other as well. And that's the perfect segue into the next bullet. We are also trying to evolve a deliberative discourse, and that basically looks like seeking to understand instead of judging. So in a conversation, I can disagree with you in some ways, but I can also try to understand you, try to understand your point of view, even though I do disagree. And so that's definitely 2 ways that we are evolving.
Hi, my name is João, and I'm also a diversity leader. And I'll be covering the last 2 bullets that we just talked about. The first one is being more independent as a class. So I think we have more space to talk about topics, like Zach said in the first bullet. And the last one is freedom to share opinions and ideas that we have in a safe place. So sometimes when you're in your classroom and you feel safer there with your teachers and your classmates. So you want to share your opinion and what do you have in your mind, and just talk about how you're feeling. What do you think about the topic we're talking about? So I think if you're in a classroom, we're gonna be safe to talk about what is in your mind and your heart. So I feel like we're having that a lot this year, more than last year, but I feel it was great. That's our slide.
Do you need next? Oh, there you go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm a diversity leader. So how the class will evolve for the 2021 and 2021 school year, the new name is going to be the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Collaborative Project. This reformed course has a large focus on combating racism, sexism, homophobia, stereotyping, and biases. Leaders have studied these issues in seminars, independent workshops, and informational videos and worksheets. Next year, this course will be open to all juniors and seniors, and we'll be running 2 sections. We will welcome all juniors and seniors to consider taking this course. This is a huge step in the right direction for us. Right now, we only have 8 students out of the entire high school that are in this class, and although the work we do is amazing, there's only 8 of us that can have these conversations, and they're really important conversations. So now that we can have any junior or senior join the class, it's going to have a really positive impact on the community and allow us to reach a much larger audience. So over the next few years, we hope to reach a wider group of students, present to middle school students to make them aware of current events and social justice issues, have more large group discussions, and host assemblies like the next slide will mention to share ideas with the whole student body and faculty. With the physical and ideological growth of this class, we hope to create a stronger community which values acceptance and meaningful discourse.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Mike Iannuzzi. I'm also a senior diversity leader here at Wakefield High. So the number one, we touched upon it with Zach. So a few weeks ago, we went into two of Mr. Colin Tony's, and for those of you who don't know him, he's the GMS principal. We went to two in his 5th grade eye care classes for an acceptance workshop. He has mandatory eye care classes for the 5th grade students at the Galvin, and we were able to go in via Zoom. We were at the high school, and they were in their classroom, 2 groups of us, 4 and 4, and have an acceptance workshop with them, which Zach explained was about how to accept others, and more importantly, why we accept others. And we plan moving forward to have much more of these workshops in the spring, and moving on, hopefully in the years to come for the future diversity leaders.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andressa, and I am also a diversity leader in our school. And in this class, we discuss about a lot of hard topics and difficult topics going around us. And because of that, we had the help of Dr. Raul Fernandez. He came to 3 classes, and he's a associate dean for equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Boston University. And he focuses on teaching us different ways in which we can communicate and facilitate successfully during difficult conversations by using deliberative discourses.
On Tuesday, the 23rd of this month, we'll be having a school-wide virtual assembly with Dr. Clint Smith. If whoever's running the slideshow could just quickly click on that link, just so we have a nice visual.
Give me just a moment for that, please.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, I am not able to do that because I'm going to need access to it, it says.
That's okay. I have a picture of it in front of me. So Dr. Clint Smith, a little bit more about him. He's an American staff writer at The Atlantic and a writing and literature teacher at the DC Central Detention Facility. His books and poems focus on the topics of race, diversity, and equity, which obviously is the title of this class. So we're going to be having a school-wide webinar with him in which he is going to read a few of his poems to the school, and then we're going to have a Q&A with him where we have come up with a few questions to ask him regarding race, diversity, and equity. Us diversity leaders will be asking him and having conversation with him to the school. And we think this is a great way, as Grace said, to get more people involved and be able to talk about what's these 3 important topics.
Hi, everybody. I'm Faith. I'm also a diversity leader, and I essentially want to talk about how we take everything we learn in this class and apply it outside of class, of course, and apply it in our lives. For example, we have collaborations between student government and the Black Student Union at the Wakefield High School. And we hold events like Blackout Attire Day, which both of cohorts wear Black clothes to show and just basically show support to the Black Lives Matter movement. This promotes just inclusivity to all the students in the school who are of color. And it just shows how that we are a collaborative group, and it just is something that we like to very much do for our community. Mike Iannuzzi, who was just talking, is actually the vice president of the class of 2021, and Rainia and I are the leaders of the Black Student Union. So we get to take everything that we learn in this class and apply it to these clubs and apply it in our lives, like I know all the diversity leaders do.
So I guess we just wanted to end with a very short video clip from Clint Smith, just so you can kind of get a feel for who he is and why we think it's so important for him to come in and talk to the students. So this is called The Danger of Silence, and I know that we really appreciate you letting us express our voices and letting the students express their voices here tonight.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in a 1968 speech where he reflects upon the civil rights movement, states, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." As a teacher, I've internalized this message. Every day all around us, we see the consequences of silence manifest themselves in the form of discrimination, violence, genocide, and war. In the classroom, I challenge my students to explore the silences in their own lives through poetry. We work together to fill those spaces, to recognize them, to name them, to understand that they don't have to be sources of shame. In an effort to create a culture within my classroom where students feel safe sharing the intimacies of their own silences, I have 4 core principles posted on the board that sits in the front of my class, which every student signs at the beginning of the year. Read critically, write consciously, speak clearly, tell your truth. I find myself thinking a lot about that last point, tell your truth. And I realized that if I was going to ask my students to speak up, I was going to have to tell my truth and be honest with them about the times where I failed to do so. So I tell them that growing up, as a kid in a Catholic family in New Orleans, during Lent, I was always taught that the most meaningful thing one could do was to give something up, sacrifice something you typically indulge in to prove to God you understand His sanctity. I've given up soda, McDonald's, French fries, French kisses, and everything in between. But one year, I gave up speaking. Figured the most valuable thing I could sacrifice was my own voice, but it was like I hadn't realized that I had given that up a long time ago. I had spent so much of my life telling people the things they wanted to hear instead of the things they needed to. Told myself I wasn't meant to be anyone's conscience because I still had to figure out being my own, so sometimes I just wouldn't say anything, appeasing ignorance with my silence, unaware that validation doesn't need words to endorse its existence. When Christian was beat up for being gay, I put my hands in my pocket and walked with my head down as if I didn't even notice. Couldn't use my locker for weeks because the bolt on the lock reminded me of the one I had put on my lips when the homeless man on the corner looked at me with eyes up, merely searching for an affirmation that he was worth seeing. I was more concerned with touching the screen of my Apple than actually feeding him one. When the woman at the fundraising gala said, "I'm so proud of you. It must be so hard teaching those poor, unintelligent kids," I bit my lip because apparently we needed her money more than my students needed their dignity. We spend so much time listening to the things people are saying that we rarely pay attention to the things they don't. Silence is the residue of fear. It is feeling your flaws, gut-wrench guillotine your tongue. It is the air retreating from your chest because it doesn't feel safe in your lungs. Silence is Rwandan genocide. Silence is Katrina. It is what you hear when there aren't enough body bags left. It is the sound after the noose is already tied. It is charring. It is chains. It is privilege. It is pain. There is no time to pick your battles when your battles have already picked you. I will not let silence wrap itself around my indecision. I will tell Christian that he is a lion, a sanctuary of bravery and brilliance. I will ask that homeless man what his name is and how his day was, because sometimes all people want to be is human. I will tell that woman that my students can talk about transcendentalism like their last name was Thoreau. And just because you watch one episode of The Wire doesn't mean you know anything about my kids. So this year, instead of giving something up, I will live every day as if there were a microphone tucked under my tongue, a stage on the underside of my inhibition. Because who has to have a soapbox when all you ever needed is your voice? Thank
you. Is that the end of the presentation, Mr. Pavey?
Yeah, that's it. We kind of wanted to end with just letting everybody know that, again, Dr. Clint Smith will be doing that virtual assembly on February 23rd for the entire Wakefield High faculty and student body. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys, diversity leaders. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You all did a great job.
Much.
You should all be really proud of yourselves. You are a great representation of Wakefield High. So great job. Okay, moving on with the agenda, I will bump back up under chair comments. I do have here mascot communication. And I know that the Policy and Communication Subcommittee has been working on some information in regards to that. So if it's okay with the rest of the school committee, I would like to ask Colleen to sort of bump up the subcommittee reports and share with us the information that you have. Colleen, are you?
I'm here.
Okay, great. I just couldn't see you on my screen, so
That's
thank
okay.
you.
Got it. Thank you, Amy. Amy, if you don't mind, I just wanted to sort of just say a couple words to the presentation. Is that okay?
Sure, of
I
course.
raised my hand, but you can't see me. So
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
no,
Yep.
no worries. There's a lot of people here. To Jason, Margaret, and our student leaders, I just wanted to thank you as Amy did. It was a very timely presentation, and you're addressing the ongoing need to infuse curriculum with diverse ideas, texts, and history. And I'm pleased to see that the class choice is available to all students, because that is inherently the goal in teaching diversity and inclusion. And as always, like Amy stated, I am so proud of our students because they are a model for accountable and meaningful discourse. So kudos to all of you and all of your work. I know there's so much work that goes into a 7-slide presentation. So thank you so much. And back to our policy and communication subcommittee. I want to thank to all who participated in public comment tonight, all that have emailed us, sent messages, or otherwise communicated directly to the school committee. I would like to inform and give confidence to the public that we take these discussions very seriously and work hard to understand the complexity of the situation. And our goal is to encourage discourse that is respectful and inclusive. When you reach out to us directly, we can then sort of, include and listen in here. So I appreciate that people show up, email us, and message us in that way. So the subcommittee has met a few times over the last couple of weeks to sort of discuss the issue at hand. And we have come up with a response to how the school committee, how we would propose that the school committee move forward with addressing the issue of the mascot review process. So the school committee, its policy and communications subcommittee, and the superintendent of schools invite the public to participate in the following process to discuss and review the use of the Wakefield Public Schools mascot / logo. I know that was a point of note during public comment. So we understand that we don't actually have, a mascot who's visible and running around fields and whatnot. And the logo is sort of the issue at hand. We would like to, part of our points tonight was that we would present and discuss the process to review the use of the warrior name and the current mascot / logo. On Thursday, February 25th, 2021, public forum will be hosted by WCAT in a hybrid studio format on Zoom and will be held at 7:30. As part of the public forum, presentation will be made to update the Wakefield community on information that has been presented to date about the use of the warrior name and the current mascot logo. A history of the mascot will be shared. A survey will be sent to the community to collect data regarding public perception about the warrior name and current mascot. Members of the community will be able to participate in a public comment period to share different perspectives about the use of the warrior name and current mascot. So that sort of happened during our public comment tonight because it was on the agenda, but this particular on Thursday, February 25th, the public forum would be specifically to discuss the mascot or to give the public a chance to be heard. On Tuesday, March 9th, we would propose that the school committee policy and communications subcommittee will summarize the information and data collected and presented at the public forum. And also on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, the school committee will review options moving forward that may include modifying the warrior name and mascot logo, keeping the warrior name and current mascot, keeping the warrior name and creating options for a new mascot, and convening a group to create options for a new mascot / logo. So we present this this process to the full school committee tonight. I did have a motion. There was not a motion in our packet, but I would like to, Susie, if you wouldn't mind reading the motion to approve the process.
I can do that. Motion to accept the process as laid out and presented by the Policy Communication Subcommittee and authorize the Wakefield Public School Administration to communicate the process to the district.
Can you just repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yep. So motion to accept the process as laid out and presented by the Policy and Communication Subcommittee and authorize the Wakefield Public School Administration to communicate the process to the district.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Discussion, Amy?
Yep, any discussion? I personally just do have some questions, if you guys don't mind, in terms of like the timing and the survey. I'm just wondering how you guys plan to send the survey out to the entire community. I'm just wondering how that's actually going to be possible and fit into the timeline that we have here. So I didn't know if anybody actually has any of that detailed information.
So do you mind if I answer that, Colleen?
Sure.
Yeah, so I don't think we're envisioning a survey. We're really just envisioning an email to the entire community. In other words, everybody on the email list of the Wakefield Public Schools, an invitation to provide their point of view in whatever means they wish to do so, in a letter, in a video presentation, written testimony, digital testimony. We just want to keep it open-ended and simple, and that we think that would be the best, most equitable way to give everybody a chance to weigh in addition to the community forum. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I just have another follow-up. So I understand that an email would be sent to all, I guess, families of Wakefield Public because we have them, but how do you reach all the other community members who are out there who may actually want to be heard and participate in this process?
Yeah, I guess, that's, I think, what we try as a subcommittee to work with the administration on. I mean, there's no perfect public input process, right? So you just do your best to, and I mean, obviously social media is another means through which to convey this invitation. And, so I don't think there's any way that we can guarantee that we're going to reach everybody, but, if we're going to have, a manageable timeline and a manageable process, we've got to start somewhere and we've got to end somewhere, if you will. If you can convey or suggest, a more efficient means of reaching more people, I think we're all ears.
Amy,
Yeah.
would it be okay if I jump in for a minute?
Sure, of course, Mike, thank you.
So I actually started down this road for a different reason. It was more related to commentary I received about this should be a townwide vote, blah, blah, blah. And quite honestly, I had no idea how that even worked. So I'd reached out to Tom Mullen to understand, how do you have ballot questions, town meetings? How does all of this stuff work? So I kind of put together a list of options, somewhat to Amy's question, but Greg had also said, if there are other options we could consider. And at the end of the day, there's no perfect solution. I completely agree. We're not going to get 100% of the people, but there are options we can consider. One would be we could submit a town meeting warrant. A town meeting warrant would in fact be a binding vote though. So I'm going to talk about a couple of pluses and minuses and then we can figure it out from there. In other words, the vote at that town meeting, which would be May 8th in this case, would be binding. In effect, the school committee would no longer be making the decision. The town would be making the decision during that town meeting vote. Some of the pluses and minuses, obviously a town meeting, there's limited amount of people that can get there. You know, people still are concerned about COVID, so you would have some challenges there. People under 18 wouldn't be able to participate. You have to be a voting citizen in order to go to attend town meeting. And as I said, the next town meeting isn't until May 8th. So that request, and that could be done by any individual within a town body. I'll read it what it says from Tom. Our charter allows any member of a multiple member body, such as school committee, to petition the town council to place an article on the next town meeting, provided that it's received 60 days before the scheduled date of the meeting. As I said before, the next meeting is May 8th. That would mean that request would have to be submitted by March 8th. You know, so certainly a big consideration is the school committee wouldn't be making the decision in that regard. So that's one option. The second is we could submit a question on the town ballot. Because this circumstance is not included in our town charter, any vote that occurred as part of that, so in effect, we would likely put that question on the April 27th ballot, would be non-binding. So it would be additional information that we at a school committee could consider as part of our ultimate vote, but we would ultimately make that vote. The downside of that, well, the positives are there's good controls. Surveys can be challenging as to, can someone submit multiple votes? Can someone submit a vote that's not in town? It sounds like you've got some of those figured out, but there's certainly a few control challenges with a survey. You know, going to vote, you know, there's probably the ultimate control. You also have the flexibility if you are not involved in technology. If you're a senior citizen that just hasn't used technology in a while, you know, they understand the process. They could do an early ballot, so they wouldn't actually have to go and actually vote there as well. Now, as I said, the next election is April 27th. School committee has and town council as well, so it would likely be a question that we would put on that ballot. You have to figure out how we could even do that question. By default, because that didn't occur until April 27th, in theory, there would be several members of the school committee now that would no longer be part of that vote because they might not continue to be school committee members after April 27th, either by choice or just by the vote itself in that regard too. The third one we talked about already is a survey. Also, I'm sorry, let me go back to the ballot. The potential downside of a ballot is you have to be a registered voter. So if we wanted to allow kids under 18 to participate in this process, that would be a restriction we would have if we only did the ballot at the question as a question. The survey also is non-binding. The benefits of that are that it allows people under 18 to participate as well. I talked about the control challenges, and it can be done quickly. So that's the benefit of that one over the other two, which are either going to be on May 8th or April 27th. So a couple of months away before we would have the information or have the decision, so to speak, in that regard. We could do a hybrid. We could do, this is just an example, we could do a ballot question for voting people, and we could do a survey for those that aren't voting, you know, under 18 people as well. Take the cumulative amount of votes for based on whatever the questions are that we decide to put in, add them up. Ultimately, it's still our decision, but we would have pretty good quantitative data from a fairly significant population perhaps as well. We could just do the public participation. I know that's part of the recommendation, and then just vote. We could vote tonight for that matter as well. So those are really the options that I just wanted to make sure we're all aware of. We haven't had a chance to talk, so I'm not faulting the subcommittee. We just as part of our bylaws and public meeting, we haven't had a chance to talk. So I just wanted to throw all those out there as options before we ultimately vote on the motion. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Colleen.
Thank you, Mike, for outlining those options. I think it's important to remember, and I'm not speaking on behalf of my subcommittee, but I think it's important to remember, so, what the school committee is charged with, and we are charged with, making a decision. And all of the other districts, unless there's legislature that's been passed to inform, it is the charge of the school committee. So it's important to understand what we've been elected to do. And that doesn't mean that we don't, it doesn't mean that we don't encourage public participation, because that's how our decisions are made, right? We are listening tonight. We will listen again. We read every email, and that is our job. And in the end, we are charged with making that difficult decision. So I just want to sort of reinforce that the process may have different options, but sort of what our charge is. And also Amy, you'd asked in communication, we would also communicate this process through the newspaper if approved tonight. And like Greg spoke to and Mike spoke to, we unfortunately can't control, how we are reaching every member of our community, because, not every member wants to be reached, honestly, but we work hard to sort of do that on every issue that the school committee tackles. We try to publish and sort of share information as much as possible. And then those who want to participate are welcome to participate. And if we have any sort of, voice from the community that there's sort of, if this format doesn't work for somebody, we would obviously make accommodations to help, community members participate. Phone calls can be had, messages can be sent. And we would take into consideration all of the opinions that come to us, whatever way they come to us. So I just wanted to reiterate that it's important in remembering, sort of like Mike said, when it comes down to it, we are still charged with making that decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, and thanks, Mike, for a really thorough elucidation of our options here. And you're right. I mean, we can take any number of approaches like that, but like Colleen, I think it's important to remember, this is a school logo, right? It's not a town logo. It's not, it's a school logo. It's pretty straightforward. And in fact, in the past, I think, I don't know if this is part of the superintendent's sort of historical information that he's going to be sharing with us, or in the past, logos have been changed by the administration without inclusion of the school committee. So we're actually, by taking this up, we're actually raising the level of a public decision making, and we're certainly raising it significantly and expanding it significantly with the proposal that we've put on the table. We're allowing exponentially more public participation in this process than this town has. If we vote to approve the motion, we're exponentially increasing the level of public participation in the approval of a logo from where this district has ever had. So I think, we should put that in perspective. And I think, like Colleen, I agree. It's the school committee's responsibility. That's what we're elected, or in the case of me and at least in my case, I speak in my case, I believe that's what these are the kinds of decisions I was appointed to make. And I also think we need a manageable timeline. As many have said, we've got a lot of other significant issues on our plate. We need a beginning and an end that is manageable. So those would be my perspectives on that.
Thank you, Greg. Susie, did you? Yep.
Yep, I came off mute to talk. So kind of in the spirit of one of the thoughts that one of the diversity leaders spoke of, and is something that has stuck with me in my professional life for a long time, is that the idea of seeking to understand. And that is our job as committee school members to seek to understand all sides of this. I think, Colleen, the process that you laid out, giving people the opportunity to kind of provide their feedback however is easiest for them, allows us to hear all the different voices and all the different perspectives. I think we heard a bunch tonight. We've, as you said, Colleen, have received numbers of emails from people. And it is our job to seek to understand and then to make tough decisions, which again, for those diversity leaders, I feel like we have an opportunity to model a very emotional, difficult thing, which happens in life. And it's our job to kind of to get it done. And so I really appreciate kind of the process that you outlined. I would say that I personally, when the youth council came back with their survey data, and I was the person actually that asked about kind of how many people had participated in that survey, and that the answer was 65 or 75. I think all of us recognized that that was not an exhaustive survey. They never claimed it was. We all knew it. And at the time, I had hoped that maybe we would be able to get a wider survey out specifically to high school students and even middle school students to get their thoughts on this. And so I would like to see, and I think your proposal, Colleen, and the subcommittee gets us there with an email that would go out from administration and would include kind of the voices of kids and voices of students. I think it's important for us to have that data point. At the end of the day, the decision needs to be made by adults, but we do need that data point. I think it's really important. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Susie. I would like to also just add, I think we're all kind of talking about the same thing, right? Like, we obviously want to make sure that we can reach everyone in the community. Of course, we want to reach out to students, and I'm just, wondering why I think that the non-binding vote actually does that. It gives everybody an opportunity to come out and vote and be heard because of this subject. Clearly, there's a lot of talk surrounding it in town. And I think at this point, like, most of the residents in Wakefield really actually want to be involved and they want to be heard. And I think the best way to allow them to be heard and involved is to do the ballot so that they can voice or be heard discreetly, but at the ballot box. And then there's, no issue. I mean, for some of our senior residents in town, they don't have email. So, you kind of are excluding a huge portion of our community who may want to actually have a voice on this. And also the Zooms, a public forum at this point, I just don't think it's the most equitable way to involve everybody. Is it a great tool to have? Of course, right? We all want to hear from everyone. But I'm just wondering why we can't do both. Like, why can't we have a public forum and give people an opportunity to be heard, but also, move forward and have this question be put on the ballot so that people can go back and vote on voting day. And then where Mike said it's a non-binding vote, we'll have a number, and then I think the student surveys is a great idea as well. So we're really covering all the bases here. And I just think that it really is the most equitable way to hear from everybody, because I do think that this is a community issue. I think that it runs through everyone right now in our community. And I think that it's really important to make sure that this process is equitable and fair and gives everybody an opportunity who wants to be heard. And I think the best way to do that would be a public forum if people feel like we should have that, but the town ballot where it's non-binding. And at the end of the day, it will still be the school committee's decision. So it's sort of like a no-brainer for me. The only other thing that I'm going to note, I see your hand, Mike. I wrote this down earlier. So if the logo stays or the logo goes, that decision will most likely outlast many of us on the school committee. Therefore, I think that the community should be part of this decision because we may come and go, but this logo is going to stay. and so want the people in our community. And then one just quick note, and again, I don't know, but if it goes to town, the town vote, and it is voted to remove, you know, what type of financial expense is that going to have on our community? And if there is going to be one, I think that the taxpayers ought to have an opportunity to be heard and vote on that. So that's my 2 cents. I would love to be able to do both. And I'm just wondering if you know, my fellow school community members would be willing to do both options and bring it to the town ballot, which at the end of the day will allow us to sort of open up our time so that we can focus on school committee business, because technically this is our busy season. We've got a lot going on. And I personally would love to sort of move forward with that business and leave it up to the ballot and leave it up to the voting. Yes, Mike.
So, yeah, I think in making a decision, I think we're taking a good shot at trying to get as much information as we can before we make a decision. And I think it's very, very important that we involve the students in that. You know, they're living it, they're wearing the 3/4 of the athletic groups wear uniforms currently that have the logo on it. So they're living and breathing it every day. But, you know, and I can understand where, like, Greg feels that this is more of a high school decision. I get that. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we did a hybrid, you could discount. We could formulate the information so that, you know, somehow maybe that a certain population is high school, and you can say, I'm only going to make my decision based on that amount of information. Some of us, Amy, may say, I want to see all of the information. Maybe Amy wants to weigh it more on those over 18 than under 18. But to limit the information from which we can make a decision, I think is a bad precedent, because each of us is making that decision based on mindset information they've gained from the process. So to unintentionally restrict the ability to get as much information from the people of Wakefield, to me, I think it's just a bad precedent. I think we should take the time, if it's 2 months. Now, I'm going to be on the school committee post April 27th. At least I'm planning on it. Some of us are not. But I really have a problem with restricting our ability within limits. I understand that. We don't want to wait 6 months to make this decision. I get it. But waiting a couple of months to get as complete information as we can from which we make the decision, as I said, some may base it on part of that information and others base it on all of it. I just feel like it's worth getting as much information as we can to make the decision in a relatively short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, you know what, Tom, we haven't heard from you. I see your hand.
Thank you, Amy. And well, certainly thank the Policy and Communication Subcommittee for their recommendation and for their thoughtful work on the last handful of meetings. I support and endorse their recommendation. There's a couple of things I'd like to speak to in no particular order. So just to cover some of Mike's thoughts around alternate options. Mike, let me also thank you for putting in that amount of work. It was no easy feat, I'm sure, to do the research that you did. I'm sure it was a couple phone calls and some email exchanges and internet research. So I certainly appreciate that and want to thank you for bringing that to the table as well. I do want to say that I'm really concerned about what a monumental distraction this not only has become, but will become if we continue to bring this into April, May, potentially June, or even thereafter. And what I mean by that is not because it's not an important issue, it's a critically important issue. It's an issue that speaks to us as a town, as a culture, speaks to our parochial past. It speaks to lots of important things. I don't say that the distraction as I'm trying to I belittle the nature of the issue. What concerns me is a handful of things. One, no matter how you slice it, at the end of the day, there's an exclusion with regard to everyone under the age of 18, whether we're at town meeting or at the ballot box, which concerns me greatly. And I can get into that piece. I've been following all the social media around that, and that is a huge piece of social media with regard to the voices of students. The voices of students have been heard in generations past that have changed the logos in the first place. The logo that Mr. Beard drew in 1947 is not the one that we're talking about today. It's not the one that we're talking about from the 70s or the 80s. It's not the one that we're talking about from the 50s. Voices of students are critically important in this realm. And in fact, in some ways, they are primary. But secondly, I agree with Greg. This is not the town logo. We're not having a conversation about changing the town letterhead or the value that the gazebo has to our natural landscape, or to reshape the common or to reshape the rockery or any of those types of things that are clearly germane to the town. This is, at the end of the day, while it's important, it represents history. It represents lots of wonderful and fond memories of high school years of past. It is the high school athletic team logo. Let's not overstate it. Let's not understate it. Let's just appreciate what it is and what it's not. And again, getting back to voices of students, voices of those that actually wear the logo and represent it. The other thing that concerns me about that is, and Mike, I even think you mentioned this, and I couldn't agree more as well. There's an abdication of responsibility that, not to get into a history lesson, I think Mr. Pavey's already left us. If not, oh no, there he is. We live in a representative democracy. We don't live in a pure democracy. We shouldn't, as elected officials, kick every can down the road and ask the general public what we should do about something just because it's controversial, or just because it's difficult, or just because there are emotions on both sides. We live in a representative democracy, right? That means that people elect us to make decisions, and every 3 years they get to re-elect us or not. And I think this is one of those things. The types of things that are of interest at the town, typically of interest at town meeting ballots, aren't opinions. They're factual matters for the taxpayers with regard to what sort of culture and value we may have about spending taxpayer dollars or critical infrastructure needs or that. So I am concerned about the abdication of responsibility in a time when clearly it's as I guess in history, this is the first time the school committee will have made the decision. But nonetheless, I clearly think that it's a school-based decision. Certainly not without input from the community at large. I think the forum does that. I think the comments that we heard tonight were terrific on both sides of the issue. I think our eyes and ears should be wide open to hearing anything that people want us to hear. The next thing I'm concerned about, and I guess this may be a little about politics, frankly, with a small p, is that I think we in the educational advocates, we as education advocates need to be a little more united than divided in going into town meeting with regard to the types of things that we are asking for with regard to advancing education. We're going to be asking for an FY22 budget. We're going to be asking for potentially additional resources for special education. We're going to be asking for additional resources potentially for the loss of learning that we've experienced in this 2 years of COVID. We're going to be having conversations about a new high school project. These are the type of things, in my view, that we as education leaders and advocates need to be standing up at town meeting and talking about. If we go into town meeting as a divided town, which this issue will be, it is heated. We can tell it from social media. We can tell it from the input tonight, and that's okay. But if we go into town meeting divided, and this is all consuming, all news, it's all logo all the time, it will be a monumental distraction to advancing, I think, some critically important work that education and educators and students could really be valued by. The last thing on this topic, meaning the alternatives that I wanted to pick up. And I thought this, and I almost wasn't going to say it, but then one of the earlier speakers from tonight's public comments actually said it in a very brave way. And I want to thank her for doing so. And that comment is, and this has to do with some profile and courage type things. I don't want to exaggerate, nor do I want to make something out of it that it's not. I don't want to be theatrical. But the speaker earlier in making public comment made the statement something like that civil rights issues are not left best to the shifts of public opinion. That's pretty meaningful to me. That's pretty powerful. Just like we heard in the student video from Dr. Clint Smith when he quoted Dr. Martin Luther King, and certainly the types of things that he referenced as a classroom teacher and his experiences. Lots of times things that public opinion shift out of emotion, out of frustration, out of anxiety, out of passion, out of lots of reasons, all good, bad, and indifferent. But sometimes civil rights issues, of which I think this is one, I think we can clearly all agree that this certainly is there. It may not be exclusively civil rights, but it's certainly up there. That was a powerful statement for that member of the public to make, and it made an impact on me. So I wanted to reiterate it here. So for those couple of factors, those couple of thoughts I'd like to share. I do not support us kicking the can down the road to bring this to the larger community. I think that creates much more of a distraction in a time when we need to be much more focused on the educational issues that are at hand. So I may come back and ask for other time as this conversation goes on, but I'd like to stop at that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Darcy, did you have? Yep, thank you.
Yes, I just want to support what Mike said, and I mean, I'm a data-driven person, so I like to make decisions based on as much information as possible. So, I mean, I'm intrigued by the idea of, a potential putting this out for the community to vote on, and then we certainly have to do our due diligence in collecting the data from all students, not just a small, I mean, getting more of a voice from both middle school, at least middle school and high school students, and ensuring the fact that the majority of the students can take the survey. So, I mean, I just hearing this information for the first time, that Mike has gathered, I think it does potentially, beg the idea of thinking about this a little more.
Thank you, Darcy. Yeah. And I'll add too, I just think that, if we want to be responsible, and if we want to make a sound decision based on this particular topic, I don't think that we should exclude the public if they want to be heard. And we do have an opportunity to include all. And I would think that we would want to do that. Include everyone so that they have an opportunity to be heard, because the forum public comment at this point, because of the pandemic, I feel like is just not an effective option to listen to everyone. There's still going to be people in the community who won't be able to participate in that. And I just think that, again, excluding people is not something that I think we should be doing. And I do think that this logo, even though it represents a high school, it is town-wide. There are so many people who are passionate about this, and I don't think that we should ignore that. I think we should embrace it, and I think we should give everyone an opportunity to be heard if they want. I think it's the most equitable way to go about it with the non-binding option. And then also, I really do like the idea of the students being surveyed, and, you know, in terms of kicking the can down the road and going to town meeting with this decision not done. I mean, we actually could do it before town meeting. You know, the vote is the 27th. We could survey the students beforehand and maybe call a special meeting before town meeting and make the vote, and then it's done. Mike, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I don't want to shut down conversation. So I do want to make an amendment to the motion, but please go ahead with commentary. Anybody first?
Colleen.
You're on mute.
But you're
Colleen.
muted.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Amy. I just wanted to make sure that our intent is not to ignore any voices or exclude any voices. Our intent is to include voices, and as many voices as we can. I think that the decision to go to ballot, which is a non-binding decision, I think it's really important for the community to understand that it's a non-binding, kind of misleading way, like take a vote, but it doesn't really count. It informs us more. So I like it as an informative measure, potentially, but I think it's important for the community to understand that that doesn't mean that it's going to town vote and that town will make that decision. The decision then comes back to the school committee. It's really to get information and to hear the public, which is what we're trying to do. And I feel like any process right now is flawed because of how we're operating right now. Zoom is flawed, surveys are flawed, and Mike and I had a discussion about that. You know, how are we going to, there's a lot of logistics behind this that we will iron out after we get through this process, but there are a lot of logistics so that we can make sure that surveys or forms are fair and that they are secure, right? Because that's really important. So I just wanted to make that point. I don't want our proposal to seem exclusive or ignoring the voices of any, when it's meant to be inclusive and meant to hear the voices as many as possible. Thank you. That's all I'll say.
Thanks, Colleen. Yes, Greg.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I'd like to just pick up on those comments and reiterate. Every decision about a logo historically in the Wakefield Public Schools has been made at the administrative level, right? Every time we've changed a logo, it's been made by the administration at some level. It's never actually gotten to this level before. So already, to debate it at this level, we're significantly increasing public participation in this decision. We're then taking this to a much wider level of public participation through an open forum and through a very, very expansive, inclusive means of input. And related to that, I'm a little baffled by some of these comments about information and decision-making around what constitutes informed decision-making, right? You're telling me the opponents of the motion or those who want to expand this, that the school committee has been hearing about this at different levels for years, right? You were getting letters as a school committee. I wasn't on at the time, so I'm using the you, around this in August. We had a youth council presentation in October. We have had dozens of emails. We have had, we're going to have a public forum. We're going to be gathering information. We're going to have another month or so to deliberate and consider information. I mean, I was on the school committee for 6 years. I can't remember being more informed than that about any decision I've ever made. We make decisions all the time about budgets, about curriculum, about the superintendent with incomplete information. That's the nature of the work. There's a reductio ad absurdum element to this, that somehow like we need to be so fully informed, that I don't know, it seems a little odd that we're now raising this standard of informed decision-making for this one issue when we've never implemented this standard before. So I think in this case, we've set a very high standard for public input through the process that we've laid out. And I think, I really think it's about the best that we can do and the most manageable for everybody involved. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Did you have any, any other comments?
Yeah, just maybe move the question now. Mike wanted to propose an amendment, so maybe we just try to get to a vote now.
Any other commentary before I do that? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't disagree with Greg. We're done more than we had before. That doesn't mean we can't do more than that too as well. So my proposal is that we amend the initial motion to also include putting this on the townwide ballot on April 27th. That's it.
Second. So the motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any discussion in terms of the amended motion? Tom?
So if I may, just for clarifying, what we're about to vote on is to amend the motion. We have not actually amended the motion yet. Mike has brought forward a recommendation, a motion to amend the main motion.
Yes, so
We are now debating his amendment, not the motion, not the main motion.
Exactly. So now we're discussing the amendment, right, to add to the original motion.
Correct. So the vote that we'll be calling for in a few moments is on the amendment, not on the main motion.
Exactly. Yeah.
Correct.
So thank you. Thank you for clarifying. That was my assumption, and I wanted to, I guess, say that out loud. Not to be terribly redundant. I already have expressed my views, hopefully in a thoughtful and kind way. But I do think that the type of recommendation that the policy subcommittee brought forward, with having a forum and having plenty of opportunity for students and members of the public to participate, it is actually a more normal way of how we conduct business. On an annual basis, we have public hearing on budgets and things that come before us. This isn't necessarily a rocket science approach. This is pretty commonplace. People that the ability to send out information through the school email system, as well as social networking, and of course the local media. As we're required to do, put out sort of press media announcements. It doesn't get any broader than that as far as exposure of people who wish to contribute, who wish to be part of the process. We do it every year on various topics, not to mention the budget when we seek, $43 million. So anyways, the concerns that I expressed earlier, I stand behind, and do not support the amendment.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I'll just add again, this isn't, one of the normal school committee, decisions, I guess, that we would have to make. Like Greg said, it's never really been done before. And the fact that it is going to be done, it clearly has affected a lot of people beyond the 7 members of this committee. And that's why I just feel as though, we really should reconsider including the community and listening to what they want to say. And I think it's really, really responsible to add a survey to that for the students, so that we reach the full, I feel like we will successfully have reached everyone, students and town people who are looking to be involved in this process. So does anybody have any other comments or questions? Yep, Tom.
I'm sorry, Amy, I don't mean to belabor the point, but I certainly want to at least say to your last point, I don't think anyone, myself included, in making remarks, is seeking to exclude anyone. And so I think that's critically important to share. Each time someone speaks, you come back with the exclusion thing. I don't think anyone is seeking to exclude. Certainly, I'm not. There's a practical element here as well. I mean, if we want to talk about, what is the depth and percentage and value of information we're going to get from the ballot box? Well, unfortunately, we could even look at what percentage of people actually vote. I mean, I bet we're going to get a more representative view of those that have an opinion on this topic at a community forum focused on this matter than the 12 to 15% of the people that actually show up at a town meeting or even a town election. So again, I don't mean to belabor the issue. My point is no one is seeking to exclude anyone. It's just the best means and vehicle by which to do that, the most expedient way that doesn't abdicate the school committee's responsibility.
Yeah,
Can I add?
I just want to add one thing. I don't mean to insinuate that anybody is excluding anybody. I am just looking to suggest that we do this in the most equitable way. And I personally feel like the most equitable way to reach everyone would be a public comment and also a town ballot. So I don't mean to insinuate that anybody is looking to exclude anybody. That is certainly not what that's not my intention. So I do apologize if that is the way it came across. And again, this vote is a non-binding vote. So, I think it was important for Colleen to mention that and for the townspeople to know you're going to come out and vote, but it isn't final, and I think that they will at least be respect and acknowledge that, thank you, you've given us a chance to be heard. And that's the best that's the best we can do at this time. And if we want to include people in a public comment, that means that, we want to obviously hear from people, and bringing it to a town ballot is the most effective way and efficient way to hear from all. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I disagree that a town ballot is the most effective and efficient way to hear from all, for the very reasons that Tom articulated, because I just think participation on ballot questions is relatively low. But I want to address a question or comment you made earlier, which if I understood it correctly, signaled that you did not think that the survey, not the survey, because it's really not a survey, but it's the open invitation to participate and share points of view in the process. Our subcommittee understood, I believe, that this would include student voices, and that we would leave it up to the administration to provide a means through which student voices are invited to participate in this process, whether through written testimony or the public forum itself. Obviously, with children and young people, that has to be done responsibly. But I think we can have confidence in our administration that they have the capacity to do that. So our expectation is that young people will have every chance available to them to participate under the proposal that we put on the table. So I just want to clarify that.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, Mike.
So I just want to clarify, we didn't make up the term survey, it's in the recommendation. So there is going to be a public participation, part of the recommendation, and there is going to be a survey. So I agree with what Tom said, none of these are perfect. We have no idea what the response is going to be for the survey. We have no idea how many people are going to show up for the public participation. We have no idea how many people are going to show up and mark that on the ballot when maybe they're voting for school committee members or for town council. We have no idea. Maybe we have conjecture, that's fine, but we don't. So having as much input as we can in a reasonable time frame. And I don't disagree. The idea is this thing needs to end. We need to move on to other things. And I'm not saying over the next 2 months, the world is going to stop revolving until this vote takes place. It can't. We have to focus on other things, and we will. So I don't want us to make the assumption that because we're going to wait 2 months, everything that we do with the school committee is going to be put on hold, because that's not going to be the case. So I just wanted to make those points.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Susie. And I just want to make one note, not to interrupt you, but if my computer dies, I'm looking to get my charger delivered to me now. So terrible time right now.
Okay. On the point of timing, I just went back into my email and we received our first email about mascots. First one I can remember on July 14th from a current high school student asking that we reconsider the mascot. The next day, we received a second email on July 15th from a 2009 graduate asking us to change the mascot. It is February 9th. Yes, we are in a pandemic. Yes, there has been a lot to deal with, but we cannot put this thing off. We need to have the hard conversations. We need to hear from people and we need to take a vote. I feel, and there's emails that came after that, right? Those were the start. July, August, the 2009 graduate followed up in August saying, hey, what's going on? Youth Council came in September, and here we are in February debating about whether we're going to push this to a vote in April or May. I don't think that is the right thing to do. I think we owe the people who have been in touch with us an answer. And I think that the subcommittee's proposal of how we gather feedback will be
Susie, you went off for a minute there.
I know.
For about the last 20 seconds.
I think Amy accidentally muted me.
Oh,
and I'm echoing through. So I think it's time. And I wanted to remind people of the timeline. And yet I don't want anyone to accuse me of rushing the vote, because that certainly is not what's happening here. We are going to create a process that's going to gather feedback from the people who want to provide it through various means. And a month from now, hopefully we will be making a decision so we can move on and focus on other important things like getting our kids back in school.
Thank you, Susie.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so just so that I understand this, we have, I think we are going to vote on the amended motion first.
I think we're voting on whether we want to amend the motion.
Yes.
Right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so motion to amend, okay, hold on one second. Okay, Susie, sorry, Ms. Bayer.
Yep. No, I do not want to amend the motion.
Tom, Mr. Markham,
No.
Ms. Guida,
No.
Mr. Boudreau,
Obviously, yes.
Dr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Liakos,
No.
and myself, yes. Okay, so that motion does not carry. So now we have to vote on the original motion.
Which has been read, has been made and seconded. Do you
Yes.
want me to read it, Amy? Just
Yeah, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah. I'm getting an echo, so I'm apologizing. I'm going to try and turn this down a little bit. Motion to accept the process as laid out and presented by the Policy and Communication Subcommittee and authorize the Wakefield Public School Administration to communicate the process to the district.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yep. Just considering that we've obviously decided not to go the alternative, I think this is the second best alternative. So under the perspective of being unified, I will vote yes to it now since the initial proposal was defeated.
Dr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Liakos,
Yes.
and myself, no. So, okay, motion passes. And moving on with the agenda.
Amy, could I
Oh,
just
yes.
add?
Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to get through the vote first before I raise this, but there's another element of this that I wanted to bring up, and I'll try to do it as efficiently as I can. I spoke with Senator Jason Lewis, whom you all know is our senator, but he's also the chair of the legislature's Joint Committee on Education. And he has been working on two bills in the legislature, one of which creates a process for changing the state flag, which is wrapped around, wrapped in many of the same issues around Native American imagery. And the other bill is would authorize the state Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to actually prohibit the use of Native American mascots in any public school in Massachusetts. And that bill actually has a chance of, a pretty good chance of passage in the legislature. And so I reached out to some Native American groups, and what I learned was that several school committees across the state, as part of their reviews of Native American imagery, logos, mascots, actually invited a panel of duly authorized tribal council leaders from different tribes across Massachusetts, and perhaps even beyond in other parts of New England, to share their perspective on this issue. And so what I'm suggesting is we create that as a panel discussion that's complements the public comment period. And the panel discussion would be straight, almost a government to government kind of conversation, different than an open forum and different than public input. So that as we heard from some of the testimony earlier tonight, really encourages us to listen to the voices of Native Americans. So what I'm proposing is that the school committee authorize the policy and communications subcommittee to craft a panel of Native American voices and outline that panel and take that back to the full school committee for its consideration and approval. So I want to throw that on the table too, and thank you for indulging me.
Amy, can I add on to that? Is that okay? You're on mute, Amy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure, Mike, thank you.
I like that, Greg, and it's Doug can weigh in on this as well. Doug and I had the opportunity, and a couple of folks I've told already, a couple of days ago, Doug, to sit down with Dick Baird for literally 2 hours. And when I tell you that was an amazing conversation, that would be understating it. From the, whether you agree or disagree with his perspective, but I tell you, he brings a lot to think about to the table, regardless of which side you're on. So I would hope that we would consider putting Dick on that panel if in fact we decide to do that. And a lot of what Dick will talk about goes even beyond the logo, that I think are things that are important for the school committee to understand. Once again, agree or disagree with. So just my thoughts. Doug, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a different meeting for us administrators to sit and listen to about the discourse going back and forth and the perspectives. I think one of the things that's abundantly clear to I think us administrators and the teachers on the call as well is that I think everyone cares deeply about trying to do this work well, right? I think everyone is trying to do what they feel is right and act in a just way. And so that's an important piece. I think the other common theme that I've heard from Christy, from all of our presenters, from Will, is that there's a need to better educate members of our community about its Native American heritage, and part of us reaching out to Dick Baird and spending time with him was just an opportunity for Mike and I to visit, to hear his perspective, but also to hear about his life and his heritage, right? So, we're talking about a logo, but there's much more to be discussed here. And so it's timely that Jason and Margaret are on the call and students are on the call as well. And the common theme in their comments as well is that there needs to be greater cultural awareness. There needs to be more education and kind of, teaching people about our past and about the connections that we have and how it's represented in the community, in our classrooms. And that's one of the most significant changes that is being made in the standards, right? We talk about content standards and process standards. Jason talked a little bit about this in the slides. History is not it's no longer this list of correct answers. It needs to resonate, and it needs to be there needs to be a living history. And one of the things that I talked to Michael about after our visit with Mr. Beard yesterday is that there needs to be a living history of Mr. Beard and his family and all that he has brought to the Wakefield community. So I think that there's a lot of layers here. I'll leave it there, Michael, but thank you for asking me to chime in there.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Doug. So we have a lot to learn from people like that, and that generation is dying off quickly. So shame on us if we don't learn from them quickly.
That's a fact.
Thank you so much, Mike. Yes, Tom.
Excuse me. Yeah, thanks, Amy. So this is kind of an exciting add-on. Thanks for bringing it up, Greg and Mike and Doug. The type of things that you've just added are intriguing to me. As with all things that we do at Wakefield Public Schools, we should be promoting and providing more teachable moments. And I guess that's exactly what we're now talking about. And that's exciting to me. Where certainly teachable moments in this case, where all views are welcome in a safe teaching and learning space. I bet, and I would love for, all of us in town to, sit back for a few minutes, lay off our cell phone and laptop keyboards, listen to each other. We might just lower the temperature a little bit, and we'll do what Wakefield does and has done year after year and time after time, because we come together on some common ground where everyone feels welcome. And that's I think this is one of those times that we can do this. And I think this is another add-on opportunity for that. I think, and as a teaching opportunity with this panel, it's really just that. So as a teaching opportunity, I guess I would support the new motion or the motion to charge the policy subcommittee to include a panel discussion with representatives of the Native American community from Wakefield in Massachusetts. And I think this is pretty exciting. I think that's a great add-on. I think the community will benefit from it greatly. And I support the motion.
So Tom, was that the motion, or did Greg already make the motion? I wasn't aware that a motion was read.
I thought
No, sorry. Yeah, I actually didn't make a motion, but I'm glad to if
I thought you did.
Oh, I did. Okay. Yeah, I guess I asked the school committee to authorize the policy and communication subcommittee to yeah, I guess it can be a form of
that's
motion.
what I heard. Maybe you didn't. I thought you did, but
Yeah, I just
You
thought
asked
that-
for permission to
Okay.
authorize the subcommittee to do that, but I don't think we made a motion. You kind of
Right.
suggested that we consider that.
Yeah, so if you want to, Greg, would you mind actually making an official motion for the record?
No, not at all. So move to authorize the school committee's policy and communication subcommittee to craft an outline of a panel discussion, including authorized authoritative Native American representatives from both Wakefield and the Commonwealth, including representatives from the Baird family, and to bring that outline back to the full school committee for its consideration and approval, and to schedule a panel discussion sometime between now and the end of our public input process.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any additional discussion? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Dr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Liakos,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on with the agenda, I will gladly pass it off to Superintendent Lyons.
Thank you, Amy. Not an easy meeting to facilitate by any stretch. Nicely done. Thank you. And so I'm going to try to speed things up. Again, thank you. Just some quick comments around COVID and vaccinations. So we have 8 new cases in the district this week. We have our quarantine numbers are hovering a little higher than we would have liked. We have some middle school teams that kind of bumped that number up at the end of last week and are continuing on into this week. But the 8 positive cases that's a very good number. It's lower, and our numbers across the state have been lower as well. This past Sunday, we tested 77 faculty members with no positive cases, 75 members with no positive cases, which is terrific. So there'll be an update on our COVID data coming tomorrow. So more to come there. Diversity leaders have already presented. I'd like to thank Margaret. We appreciate it very much. Jason, I know your video is off. And also please, Margaret, and thank the diversity leaders for us. This course that you are now leading was kind of a dream that we had back in July and August when we met with Raul Fernandez to talk about what might be possible, right? I know Kara picked this up and did work with yourself and Jason, and the students were amazing tonight. So I think you have a lot to be proud of in regard to your work. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to turn it over to Maria Muti at this point to talk a little bit about the Human Rights Commission and the work that's happening there, just to get an update. Maria, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you so much. I know that we're going into hour 4, so I'll take as little time as I need. First, I want to thank you all so much for the work that you're doing. This is a hard job before there was a global pandemic and a heated discussion on the logo. So your efforts have not gone unappreciated. Every single one of you has put tremendous time and effort into this, and I really do sincerely appreciate the work that you've done. So I'm here tonight because I'm the chair of the Human Rights Commission in Wakefield, and it has been the practice in years past for the chair to come and give an annual report. And so at the end of 2020, I had contacted Amy Purcell and Ann Santos and asked them both if I could appear before their boards as the appointing bodies of the Human Rights Commission to give an annual report. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. So just for those of you who are not familiar, our structure, to the next slide, We are a body of 11 voting members. There are 8 members. They were previously appointed separately. Now they are jointly appointed by the town council and the school committee. In addition to our 8 voting members, we have 1 member of the clergy, 1 police officer, and 1 student. We also have 3 ex officio non-voting members, the chief of police, town administrator, and superintendent of schools. In addition to those to those members, we have liaisons from the town council, the school committee, and the youth council, who regularly attend our monthly meetings as well. And we were voted into existence in August of 2015. So we have just passed our 5-year anniversary. So I wanted to give just kind of an overview of what we've done over the past 5 years, which is no small feat. And in 2016 was kind of the building year of establishing kind of our policies and procedures, our structure, our website, building up membership, and just kind of forming the foundation of the Human Rights Commission. And since then, we have taken off running. We have done 5 years of the Martin Luther King Coretta Scott King event. We are about to do our 5th International Women's Day event next month. That is in the planning process. For 3 years, we've done fall speakers events with the Unitarian Universalist Church on transgender issues, anti-racism, and human trafficking. For 2 years, we have done a celebration of Pride Month, which includes the flag raising at the American Health Civic Center, Taste of Pride, which was a fundraiser for the NAGLY organization of gay and lesbian, LGBTQ youth. We've done an ice cream social with the Boys and Girls Club. We did book readings for all within Pride Month. Every year when there's not a pandemic, we participate in Wakefield 101, Festival Italia, International Night, Festival by the Lake Farmers Market, and that's to name a few. There are other things that we also take part in. We have an ongoing collaboration with the library. So we've done book discussions with them on anti-racism themes. We have partnered with them in their Commit to Your Community series that's ongoing right now. We've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. They have been a huge contributor to the Martin Luther King Coretta Scott King event every January, helping with service projects. We've also had a collaboration with the Anti-Defamation League. Over the years, we've had, I believe, at least 2 speakers come from the Anti-Defamation League to talk about hate speech and kind of the state of hate in Massachusetts. We've also done advocacy on statewide issues, including the transgender anti-discrimination bill that was on the ballot several years ago. For the years of 2020 to 2021, what's ongoing right now, I think a lot of you have seen the posters around town for the One Wakefield messaging campaign. And this was something that was in the works a few months ago, but it's so timely right now where there's so much divisiveness around the logo in that we are one community and we attend the same schools, we enjoy the same events and festivals and 4th of July parades and everything like that, that we need to be able to find our commonalities to be able to come together and work together as a community. And as our founder, one of our founders, Bill Chetwin, said, the only way this is all going to work is if we all work together. So in the spirit of that, one of the youth council members who is the liaison to the Human Rights Commission, she created these posters, and there will be 4 over the course of the year to spread positive messaging that we celebrate diversity. We are all one community together. We also just completed 2 active bystander trainings, which were fully attended. They had space for 22 participants in each training, and we were fully booked for both of those, which was really exciting to see. We have also created a new member orientation, and we felt that this was important because so many of us, when we came into the Human Rights Commission, there was there needed to be some sort of onboarding for people to understand what the what the history of the organization was, and the policies and procedures, understanding open meeting laws, all sorts of different elements of the structure of the board. So, so we created that, and my hope was to send it to you before the meeting, and I am absolutely happy to send it to you immediately after this meeting so you can take a look at that. This past October, we did a number of book readings around Indigenous Peoples Day. And this month, we are in the process of working on book readings for Black History Month. Going forward, we have some ambitious plans. We are planning to continue our anti-racism work. We want to improve communication with the community because we are hearing from more and more people that they're not hearing about our events, and we have a communication subcommittee who is working on that to increase our visibility and increase so that it's not just people on Facebook who follow us on Facebook who are finding out about our events. We want everyone to know about our events so they have the opportunity to attend. We're also looking to build up our volunteer base to help spread the workload. We have found we had added 2 additional voting members back in the spring of 2018 because we all are so excited about this work and about this mission that we've all spread ourselves too thin, and we need a better, stronger volunteer base to be able to help us to be able to put on some of these events that we're so excited to do. We also want to partner with more groups in town, and I like the diversity leaders that presented tonight. I am so, like, my heart is soaring with everything that you said and about the program that you're doing. So we would love to partner with you in any way that we can. So looking forward to a communication around that. We're also working on creating an archive of past events, because again, we now have 5 years of MLK, Coretta Scott King events. We have so many different things that we need an archive of all of that. And in addition, and finally, we are looking for always more opportunities to educate ourselves and the community to celebrate the diversity that we have in this community. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has, and I just want to thank you all so much.
Thank you, Maria, so much. And I do apologize for the delay, but I'm thrilled that we finally got you to our meeting. And, you know, all of your information that you provided is very well informed. And it certainly sounds like, you know, the Youth Council and the Human Rights Commission and all the other stakeholders who are involved are doing some pretty great work in town. So looking forward to hearing more about it. But thank you very much for participating. Does anyone have any questions for Maria? Yes, Tom.
Thank you. It's really not so much of a question as it is just an added thank you. That you started out your comments by sort of thanking or appreciating us for a difficult year and the work we're doing, and that is appreciated. But let me also say, you have had a difficult year. And we as a community wanted to come together to support the important work of the Human Rights Commission. Hopefully we have done that. Hopefully we have worked to reunify your work and bring some solidarity behind the importance of what you do and the importance of what you stand up for in our town. And so I really want to thank you, Maria, for your leadership during what has been a difficult year for really all of us, but your committee as well, your commission as well. So I hope, I hope that all your members, not just your newer members, but all of your members are feeling feeling supported from both town council, as I'm sure they do, and from school committee as well. But thank you for tonight's presentation and annual report, and thank you for what you've been able to pull together in a difficult year too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to acknowledge what you said. And if there are people in the community that still have questions about anything about the work, please absolutely reach out to me. You can reach me at the Human Rights Commission email address. I am happy to have a conversation with anyone that wants to have one.
Yes, Greg.
Thanks, Amy. I just really want to echo Tom's comments. I think like in 5 years, the amount of work and the impact of the work that the Human Rights Commission has done is really extraordinary, and it deserves our support, deserves our praise. You mentioned Bill Chetwin. I think if he could see the legacy of what he started, he would really be smiling. I remember he invited me to be part of the steering committee that I think created the first set of bylaws that were modeled on Melrose's Human Rights Commission. And he was a member of this committee and a really legendary civic leader. And I think he would really be proud of the work that you and all of the members of the Human Rights Commission have done over this past 5 years. So I really want to thank you. And I agree. You're tying together the conversation we had tonight about really what, as Tom said, was a civil rights issue, the diversity leaders and how impressive their presentation was, and the work of the Human Rights Commission really makes me proud to be a part of this community, moving it forward in a meaningful way. And lastly, I just want to say, I like your logo. So I'll leave it.
Thank you, Greg. Any other comments from Maria? Nope. Well, thank you so much again for joining our meeting tonight, Maria, and hope you come back soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, Doug.
Thank you, Amy. We'd just like to move on to the calendar and our professional development plan. And so Kara and I are going to just talk very briefly about that. We've shared the calendar, the updated calendar in your packet. What we've done is, so just to kind of refresh everyone who might be watching at home, we started the school year with 10 professional development days. The student days were decreased from 180 to 170 because we needed to kind of get up to speed and do a lot of planning with our reopening plans and opening in a hybrid model, something that we had never done before. And so our contract also requires that there are 4 professional development days as part of our calendar, in addition to the days that were added this year. So there are 174 days that we need to account for. One of those professional development days was used for the election day in November. We're going to use another professional development day. It's going to happen on a Tuesday for the voting day in April. And then we're going to have one other professional day on a Wednesday. And so the 4th professional day of the year will be the last day for teachers, where they have an opportunity to come in and kind of do some work to close out the year, which is an important day for them as well. And so the new calendar represents those updated days. I do want to stress that we're still in a COVID environment, and our schedules in regard to hybrid and remote and days in and days out are still not etched in stone, but are still subject to change based on our need to keep students and staff safe. But that calendar that we have, we would like to answer any questions that you might have, and then maybe hear a motion to support the calendar, if you can.
Thank you. Doug, does anyone have any questions about the calendar revisions? Yes, Susie.
Yes, I just want to be really clear, because Doug, I was a little bit confused about the last day comment that you made. So when I look at this calendar, I see April 27th, which is voting day, will now be no school professional day for teachers.
Yep.
Also, May 19th will be no school professional day for teachers. And then what was the comment about the last day of school? Because I missed that.
So there are 4 professional development days in any given year. The 4th day is always dedicated for the end of year closeout for teachers. Right? And so the 4th day that you'll see a last day for students, but there's an additional day that teachers work. That if we didn't represent them, Go ahead, Kara. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, Susie, you're probably seeing that it's not flagged on the calendar. So the way that it reads in the contract is that last day falls the day after student's last day. So we probably could have marked staff last day as technically, I think, the 21st. Is that what you're?
Yeah, that would have been, I can see why you would not flag that because that would be very confusing to parents. I didn't catch that in kind of the write-up. Okay, so there's 2 days that parents did not know about until tonight that are now no school days. And one is a Tuesday and one is a Wednesday. And on the week that it is a Tuesday, is it true that the cohort that's a Monday, Tuesday cohort will go Monday, Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. And then on the Wednesday, there's no school and everybody's would have been remote anyway. So the last day of school is now Friday, June 18th.
Right, because those days are made up and added in June to make a full week. Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
And currently on our schedule that we have scheduled that Friday as a full day. Historically, that has been a half day. What we're still working on without knowing what schedule we're going to be able to be in at the end of the year. We don't know if we're going to be able to be in a hybrid schedule or what safety precautions we're going to need to be taking or how COVID will be progressing at that point in the year. So, our elementary cohorts, want to try to be able to get both cohorts in, but likely that day would be scaled back to a half day. But it will depend on our end of year and kind of what we're able to create there. But I just want people to know that. Yes. And Susie, as we spoke earlier, in regard to, parents being unaware of the 2 additional days, yeah, you're correct. And so we announced this earlier in the year, what the contractual agreements were, but I can see in the course of time how that falls by the wayside, right? Hindsight is 2020. What we should have done is built in the 184 days. And then if we needed to change it or scale back, we could have, but it's good feedback.
No more questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Any other questions or clarifications for Superintendent Lyons? Okay, so do we have a motion, Susie?
Yep. Move that the school committee approve the updated school calendar and professional development dates as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Bayer.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Guida.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Dr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Liakos.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Lyons. Is that all you had?
That's it. The professional development plan just basically outlines what's going to be happening on those days. So it's informational and doesn't need a motion. But
that's great. Thank you. Okay, moving on with the agenda, subcommittee reports, finance and facilities. We have a meeting this Thursday. We did meet last Thursday to continue to talk about the fiscal year 21 budget. And I do think that we'll be drilling down more in detail on Thursday. So more to follow with that. Labor and personnel, Tom.
We do not have a report for this evening.
Thank you. Student services, Darcy.
Yes, we met actually after the last school committee and talked a little bit more in detail about the intervention after school tutoring intervention plan that Doug shared. And then we have a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 to continue our discussion around, I think, budgets related to student services.
Thank you, Darcy. Future dates and agenda items. The next school committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 23rd at 7:30. And if anyone has any agenda ideas, please feel free to email them to me. School committee comments. Oh, yep, Susie.
Can I just ask a quick question? Darcy, you guys have referred to the survey that you did a couple of times in past updates. Is there a plan to share that data with the committee at an upcoming meeting?
I don't know, actually. We can discuss it tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, the main topic of conversation, the student services, has been around the intervention plan, which is a result of the survey.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
yeah,
you guys have kind of already used the data to inform kind of where you needed to focus. I think it would be interesting for the rest of the committee just to see that the input at a high level of kind of, what you picked, the themes that I think probably were the most important to address. But I think it would be good for the committee to just see kind of the full picture of, and not in a tremendous amount of detail, kind of a high level overview of what your findings were, I think would be helpful. I know there were like 1,200 people who responded. So I think you guys said that we've never had like survey feedback before. I have a feeling that we may have 1,200 responses to what we put out for around the mascot. But I think that is I think we should be looking at that if 1,200 people took the time to fill out that survey.
Doug, yeah, you want to talk a little bit about how you use the data with your school leadership teams and.
Sure, I'll be very quick. In regard to the question, Susie, about us summarizing the data, we plan when we get the information back from our budget survey data that we will also include the student services subcommittee summarization as well.
Got it.
We'll both during that time. And Darcy, during that time, we'll also talk about the intervention piece and what we're doing with our school leadership piece. So
that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, so school committee comments. I will just go in the blocks that I see. Susie?
I'm all set.
Mr. Tom?
Thanks, Amy. So let me first, I guess I'd like to thank everyone who joined us tonight during public comment, regardless of which side of the issue that you were on. You shared with us your thoughts, opinions, suggestions on how to move forward, and all of that opinion matters. All of that helps to formulate the best public policies and best processes that we can. So I thank you for that, and I'm sure everyone else does too. So, and thanks for that input. It is useful. Second, I guess I'd like to thank and congratulate the high school diversity leaders for their presentation tonight. I mean, nothing better. And if we want to talk about everything, I mean, I know it's 10:24. The highlight tonight was absolutely not the mascot. The highlight tonight were these kids providing their heart and their soul and their best energies into putting forward some really positive energies about the type of school in which they want to learn, the type of community and type of culture in which they want to live. So, I mean, that was to me the highlight of tonight. I just want to congratulate them. And of course, the teachers too that work so hard with them and support them in their work, the teachers, advisors, coaches, and all. Just some really important stuff and some really inspiring work. The Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Collaboration Project. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. I'll never remember that, or maybe I will because it's such a mouthful, but I can't wait to hear more about that and see that roll itself out. But what a terrific group of student leaders we have. And I guess we should be most open to following our student leaders. And that's just very impressive. But lastly, I just want to encourage the entire community to follow the process, provide more guidance and input with regard to the high school logo and image, and participate in the upcoming forum. Send us more emails. We've been getting dozens and dozens of them. Let's get more. There's plenty of opportunity to comment and participate. With the second set of work that the policy and communication subcommittee is going to provide us with, there'll be even another forum. I'm assuming that will come from that. So anyways, I think it was a good, productive, honest, good old fashioned meeting that really brought out the heart and soul of our town. And that's what it should be all about. So I thank everyone who contributed, participated tonight. I thank my colleagues for a robust conversation.
Thank you, Tom. Greg.
I couldn't say it better than Tom. Let's just leave it at that. Thanks for everyone who participated tonight. Good discussions all around, and more to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Mike.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, I'm not sure about bringing the kids anymore because every time they talk, I feel even more inadequate than I felt before they talked. They're amazing. Gosh, I hope we continue to listen to them, and I certainly hope we get great participation out of the survey. And a point that kind of, we had a respectful dialogue about an issue in which we voted 4-3. And I think it's important for us as, supposed leaders of the community that people understand you can have conversations like this and you can respectfully disagree and you can move forward. It's kind of like the decision-making process is almost as important as the decision we ultimately make. And I hope we can continue to do that as a body, even though obviously the vote didn't go the way I personally felt. I thought it was a respectful process from soup to nuts. So I appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Darcy.
Yes, I'd just like to echo what others have said, and that I really appreciate the students, the ones who made the presentation, but also the students who during open forum had the courage to speak in this forum. That's a tough thing to do. So I really, I thought it was outstanding, and I hope we have an opportunity to hear from students on a regular basis and more often.
Thank you, Darcy. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I echo what everyone has already said so eloquently. So thank you. Sorry, Colleen, you were last.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
I apologize.
I didn't want you to zoom off,
Thank you for putting your hand up. I do apologize for that.
That's okay. I wasn't going to say anything because of the time, but you all just keep going like the little engine that could. So Mike, I just thought you wrapped up the bow so nicely. So I appreciate you sort of bringing us back together in that way. That's this, like you've all commented on, it's a model for discourse, and we have a lot more of that to happen. And I hope that the public was watching, and I hope that they feel confident to continue further with that. So thank you to everyone who participated, and thank you to my colleagues, as always.
Thank you, Colleen. So with that, do we have a motion?
Always catch me on that last one. Jeez. Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of February 9th, 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Bayer.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Guida.
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Dr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Liakos.
Yes.
And myself, yes. So thank you all. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you,
Be
Amy.
well.